Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Like most teenage boys, I believed that I was a wolf, not a sheep. And like most teenage boys, I was wrong. I was very much a follower. Specifically a follower of Daniel Lawman. Daniel Lawman was the coolest boy in school. Handsome, charming, and effortlessly intelligent. I ached to be someone like him. But along with everyone else, all I could hope for was the occasional crumb of his attention. I was not a stupid kid, and I often did well at school, but I'm embarrassed to admit that for the longest time, the moment I recalled with the most pride was the day that I made Daniel laugh. I don't remember what the joke was, but the whole class laughed and I got a detention because of it. I didn't realize that I had caught Daniel's attention until that afternoon. We were in the locker rooms, getting changed for PE, when out of the blue he came up behind me and he punched me on the shoulder.
Great one this morning, Simon.
He grinned.
Killed it.
I stared at him, open mouth, willing myself to say something, to say anything. The best achievement was a stuttered, "Thanks." He tapped a finger at me.
You should be a comedian.
And then I found out just how much of an impression my joke had made when he suddenly decided to share with me his secret. He glanced around to make sure no one was watching and then, turning slightly to the side, lifted his shirt.
Check this out,
he said, smirking. On his ribcage was a tattoo, a red eagle, wings wide, claws dripping blood. Hideously cliched, I now realize, but at the time it was the coolest and most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. "Where did you get that?" I breathed. "And how? Don't you have to be 18 to get a tattoo?" Daniel shrugged.
My cousin Steve did it. He's a great artist.
He pulled his shirt back down, tucking it into his trousers.
I got it as an early birthday present.
He laughed.
2 years early.
He offered me a charming grin and a wink.
Hey, don't tell anyone, yeah? I don't want to get Steve into trouble.
I nodded with enthusiasm. For the first time in my life, I felt part of an exclusive club. One of the few people who knew something intimately private about Daniel Lawman. To be honest, that was pretty much the entirety of my relationship with Daniel. He rarely spoke to me after that, and I don't think I ever made him laugh again. But it didn't matter. I always would have that moment in the changing rooms, that instance of trust. And the sight of that tattoo. God, I dreamt about it. I sketched it endlessly, wishing that it was on my skin. Whether it was the design itself or my association with the boy who had it, I don't suppose I'll ever know. But I wanted it. I needed it. I would stare at myself in the mirror and feel that I looked incomplete. Because my skin was unmarked and boring, with a dull patch on my ribcage where a red eagle should be. I resolved to get one too, and I was sure that I couldn't wait 2 years to do so. I probed tattoo forums, asking whether anyone knew of an artist who might be a little flexible regarding the age of their clients. I tried to be as delicate as possible, of course, framing my questions as a general curiosity rather than an actual search. But I guess I wasn't careful enough. "You want to see Jack," said the message. "He'll do you." Then underneath, a phone number. Nothing else. The number was a landline I saw rather than a mobile, so I called it the next day. My heart pounded as it rang, and I found myself hoping that maybe no one would pick up. Then there was a click.
Hello?
The word was drawn out, almost sarcastic, and the voice was high and a little whiny. I tried to speak, coughed instead, and then managed to get my words out. Hi. I was told you do tattoos,"
Oh, yes.
came the reply.
I do indeed. Would you like one?
Jack, assuming that's who I was talking to, sounded delighted at the prospect and also somewhat patronizing, like an old woman offering a sweet to a child. Yes, I said. I'm after a red eagle. Jack cut me off.
You can give me the details when you get here. Is tomorrow acceptable?
I nodded and realized that was stupid and managed a week. Yes,
Excellent!
cried Jack.
Bring your sweetness here tomorrow at 7 o'clock sharp.
He gave me an address in town. It was not an area I would have ever wanted to go to on my own. Also, my sweetness? But I wanted that tattoo. Some little madness has attached itself to my vulnerable adolescent brain and was telling me that I would only be complete when I had it. Only be cool when I had it. And so, the next day at 7 p.m., I went to see Jack. The sun had long since set by the time I arrived, my path lit only by flickering orange streetlights. The address was on a small industrial estate, squatting among small, grubby businesses, repair shops, and other units of indeterminate purpose. A handful of men stood around in scruffy, oversized clothing, with cold faces and piercing eyes. I had tried to dress to make myself inconspicuous. Jeans, a hoodie, but I still stuck out like a sore thumb, embarrassingly young and out of place. I hurried past them, not making eye contact. Eventually I found the place I was looking for. The door was locked, and as this particular building had no windows, I couldn't see inside. I knocked and waited. My heart was pounding, and I was painfully aware of the cold-faced men watching me. No one answered, so I knocked again. An unpleasant suspicion began to form in my mind. Was this all a prank? Or worse, a setup? Oh God, was I about to be jumped by these guys? I was just about to make a run for it when I heard footsteps from inside the building and the scraping of locks. I held my breath, and then the door opened. At first, I couldn't make out anything at all. It was pitch black on the other side. Then, a pale face loomed into view. Hello! Jack stood before me. His face was long and thin with oddly bulging eyes, yellowish skin and lank hair. He was tall with spindly legs and arms, but his torso was strangely round, with sagging breasts and a bloated stomach. He was wearing black overalls and a white apron, which he was wiping his fingers on as he stared at me. I opened my mouth to speak, but didn't get the chance. "Ah, yes," he cried. "The young man who wants the tattoo. Of course. Come in. He stepped aside, flapping his hand towards the darkness of the interior. I didn't want to go inside at all, but I found my feet carrying me forward, as if they didn't care what the rest of me wanted. Jack shut the door behind me, and I suddenly became aware of an unpleasant smell. Bleach, maybe, mixed with something meaty. I couldn't tell whether it came from the building or from Jack himself. He skipped ahead of me, moving oddly lightly for someone so awkwardly built. I followed as if in a trance. As he led me into a room off the side of the entrance corridor, it was surprisingly brightly lit, filled with cupboards and shelves weighed down with bottles. And in the middle of the room was a black chair that looked like a dark version of something you'd see at the dentist. Jack waved me to it. I sat down, and he perched delicately on a stool next to me. "Now, young Simon, what can I do for you?" I reached a shaking hand into my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper, onto which I had sketched the design of Daniel's tattoo. I passed it to Jack. "I'd like this, please." Jack peered at it, an unsettling smile on his pudgy lips, his eyes oddly expressionless. "How pretty!" he exclaimed. "But not, I think, an original." I had fully intended to pretend that it was, so the question caught me off guard, and the truth slipped out. No. I copied it from a boy at school." Ah, sweet, sweet Daniel. Jack giggled. A most unpleasant sound. I sat up straight in astonishment. You know Daniel? Why, of course, my love, chuckled the man. I was the one who gave him this pretty picture. So Daniel had lied to me when he said his cousin had done the tattoo for him. I struggled to think of him coming to this place, sitting in this chair. It was strange to imagine the effortlessly cool Daniel in this creepy dump. However, I was also pleased. If Jack really had done Daniel's tattoo, then I could expect mine to look exactly the same. I pulled up my shirt and pressed my hand to my rib cage. I'd like it here, please. Jack's head snapped up, and he stared at my exposed skin. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes wide, but his face was bizarrely still, his expression unreadable. Then he snapped into a smile and looked up at me. Of course! I lay back on the chair and shifted slightly to my side as Jack got up and moved around the room, picking items off of shelves, though I couldn't see what. I let my eyes wander, feeling nervous and excited. There was a clinking of bottles somewhere behind me. You know this is a painful procedure, yes? Inquired Jack. I replied that I did. Good. Good. Then perhaps a little something for the pain? I was about to ask what he intended when two things occurred to me. The first was that I couldn't see anything in the room that looked like a tattoo machine. And the other was that Jack had known my name without me telling him. And then Jack stepped quickly up beside the chair and pressed a mask down upon my face, covering my mouth and nose. I struggled, but he held me down without difficulty, leaning down to stare into my eyes. Easy now, my love. You get what you came for. As I slipped into unconsciousness, he added, And I'll make sure you get home in one piece. Mostly. Several hours later, I finally found myself back to consciousness. I remembered fever dreams of horrible sounds, slicing, screams maybe, an awful image of Jack standing over me with blood on his face, whilst he chewed on a pale sliver of something. He was staring into my eyes as he did so, his pupils impossibly big in the bright room. I was lying on my bed, in my room. I tried desperately to remember how I'd got there, but I couldn't recall anything. Dawn was breaking outside the window and my bedside clock announced that it was morning, still a few hours before I needed to be at school. I climbed to my feet, with my head spinning, and tottered over to the mirror. My whole body ached, but a sharp pain in my side needed to be investigated immediately. With shaking hands, I raised my shirt and looked at my ribs. There it was, a tattoo of a red eagle, wings wide, claws dripping blood. As shallow as it may seem, I was so delighted at the sight of it that the confusing events of the night before were purged from my mind. I stood there admiring it, already feeling more like a man than a boy. But as I peered closer at the magnificent bird, something looked a little wrong. I had read that a new tattoo didn't look its best at first, but this one looked really strange. It was angry around the edges rather than on the design itself, raised and raw. But what did I know? I never had a tattoo before. How could I tell what they're supposed to look like when they're new? I went into the bathroom and gently cleaned the area. It was agony to touch it, but I was far too excited to care. It needed to look its best, so that I could show it to Daniel. He would appreciate what I had done, and understand the importance of the thing. I positively skipped to school. It was all I could do not to show it to my friends, to everyone I spoke to, but no, I needed to save it for my tattoo twin. I was breathless with excitement, but he wasn't in. I asked around, as casually as I could, but no one seemed to know where he was. I trudged home at the end of the day, trying to keep my disappointment from turning to tears. What did it matter if he didn't see it today? Daniel would be in tomorrow, or the next week, and I could show him the tattoo then. I only had to wait. But he wasn't in the next day, or the day after that. I came down to breakfast on Saturday morning, and as soon as I walked through the door into the kitchen, I knew something was wrong. My mother was hanging up the phone, her face a little pale. She looked up at me as I entered, with tears in her eyes. "What's happened?" I asked. She almost ran over to me and swept me into a tight hug. Her arms pressed against my side, and I almost cried out at the pain. Pushing her away, she wiped her eyes. "Simon, someone from your class has been killed." A chill ran over me. I felt a sudden leadenness in my stomach. An awful inevitability. "Who?" I asked, although I was sure that I already knew. "Daniel Lawman." She probably said other things after that, but I didn't hear them. I went straight to my room, cold with shock. I didn't speak, didn't eat. My mother was sympathetic but a little confused. She hadn't realized, she said later, that the two of us had been so close. It came out that his body had been found on an industrial estate. The cause of death wasn't clear at the time, but there had been significant blood loss from a large wound on his side, over his ribcage. Some odd, ritualized mutilation, it was theorized. I stood in front of the mirror looking at what had been, for a few glorious days, my pride and joy. I felt sick. Now that I looked closely, I could see the tiny stitches that held on my beloved tattoo. I could see that it was raised where Daniel's skin jutted up against mine. Overwhelmed with sickness and horror, I tried to work my fingers underneath it, ignoring the agony of doing so, to try and pry it from me, but it was no use. Our flesh was already melding together. It should have been impossible. My body should have rejected the graft, but instead it was knitting into me, as if it was just a wound to be healed. After another 3 days, no one would have been able to tell that the tattoo ever belonged to someone else. Sometime later, when the investigation had died down a little, I returned to Jack's address. I wasn't entirely surprised to see that the building was almost completely gone. Blackened, charred, and derelict. I could tell the police about Jack, I suppose. But would they really believe me? My wild story of how I ended up with Daniel Lawman's tattoo on my body? Maybe. Maybe not. But mostly I feared that someone will see it and end up with a burning desire for it like I did. But they'll find Jack and ask for an exact copy. And then he'll come for me and pass on his Red Eagle tattoo to the next customer.
The world is more alive at night. It's like God isn't looking. Elvis Presley. The following tape recording was found at the scene at the Sundance Motel near the Belle River, Louisiana. Testing. 1, 2. Well, I'm alive and here I am. Yet another lonely night, driving on yet another dark highway in this foul year of our Lord 1988. The headlights of other solitary drivers are all passing me by in a haze out there. It's all just a blur. I wonder how many of them are thinking the same thing, cooped up in their little aluminum coffins like me. Life. It's all just some goddamn pantomime, and we all know it, but we go through the motions regardless. You walk down the streets at night and everyone's behaving like dogs. The buildings are all scarred with jailhouse tattoos, and the diesel smell in the air makes you want to gag on your own tongue. Kinda makes you wonder what it's all for, don't it? Driving alone in the emptiness of night, always has that ability to install a sense of melancholia in me. Here I am, and here lies behind me just another wasted day gone up in smoke. The awful city in my wake spills out like an overflowing sewer across the delta. Here lies a man, not that the cavalcade of prostitutes and losers on the street corners would care anyway. Usually, I would be all somber and depressed on this kind of night, but not anymore. Not now. No, tonight is a special night. It's my last night in town. I'm grinning from ear to fucking ear. I just left New Orleans. I just robbed the CVS there on the outskirts. Stuck my blade right in the man's face and told him to give me everything. No, I didn't kill him. I just put the fear of God in him instead. Under my arm as I left the store was a crate of Miller Lite, 2 bottles of hooch, one of which is now half empty, and 2 packs of Marlboro Reds. Not to mention $259. Yep, it's gonna be one wild night. I stole one of them dictaphones that you see on detective shows too. Little handheld tape recorder thing. That's what I'm speaking into right now. Treat this recording as a confession, a diary, an acknowledgement of my existence, or whatever you choose. It doesn't really matter to me. By dawn, I won't be here anyway. And I'll tell you why. That asshole boss of mine called me into his office just before clocking out on a Friday. And you know what? He fired me right there. Can you believe that? 30 years I've been with that company. 30 years of my life given to them, and some slick little bastard in a tie calls me in and fires me without severance on a Friday afternoon. He said I was underperforming. That's the word he used. I hate that kind of talk. That's one of them buzzwords that carries a lot of weight but doesn't actually mean anything. 20 years my younger, and he fires me. No talk, no warnings, just a cold cut. The little bastard probably can't even tie his shoelace, and he's got more money than the entire floor I worked on. I went to Brown. I worked in finance my entire life, and he treated me like I never meant nothing. But I tell you what does mean something. I stole his car, a suave little Mercedes with a convertible roof. That'll teach him. Why? Because I just don't give a crap anymore. I've been nothing but a good person my whole life, and where has it gotten me? Just another divorced 50-year-old bum whose kids won't even pick up the phone to him anymore. Well, tonight, cowboy, it ends. I'm going off the edge, out with a bang. I'm heading to Lafayette, and I'm gonna kill that slick little prick. On the passenger seat is my Remington 870 shotgun and 2 Colt 1911s. He deserves it. That's what I think. People like him get to do what they want, and the rest of us suffer in silence. The world is on a diagonal now, but tonight, I'm the balancing point. On the I-10. It's a bit later now. Must be midnight. Can't quite read my watch on account of the bourbon. But I thought best to document this night as and when it unfurls before me. And boy, I thought I'd document this. I've just pulled away from some fly-ridden gas station outside Baton Rouge. I think it was off Interstate 10. I just filled up the little tin can that was my boss's car. And as I did, I stood there in the silence. The night was quiet. Quieter than normal. Had to admit, I felt pretty exposed. The air seemed thicker than usual. It was hot. The pops of sweat ran down my back like beads of oil. The flies buzzed all around the twitching halogen lamps in the forecourt. I peered beyond that island of light at the station and out to the dark bayous of Atchafalaya beyond. They stretched on endlessly into the sultry night. Toads ribbited, and at the edges of the swamps just past the highway, the hissing of those crocs was as clear as cop sirens to me. Something was not right back at that station. Maybe I've had too much to drink, but something don't feel right at all. There's a net settling over us tonight. I saw a man slumped over back there. He was near the ATM. He was convulsing and fitting. The cashier in the station didn't take any notice of either of us out there on the forecourt. I stood at the car and looked down at him. At first, I just thought he was just some junkie, just another crumpled life. But then I saw his mouth, and what was frothing out of it, a thick, bubbling white liquid. Rabies. The poor son of a bitch had rabies. When you get to the point where you're fitting on the asphalt of some gas station, you're pretty much fucked. His face was all swollen and bruised like he had been stung by a gang of hornets, like his face was half filled up with water. But the thing that really scared me was how in between the man's excruciating fits, he managed to glare right at me and point his finger at my body. His eyes were wide and black and hollow, and he just stared up at me, gasping, while all the froth and sickness of the damned seeped down his vest. He didn't even seem to be living anymore. His mind had left him. Maybe he was asking for help? It was like a warning or a bad omen, but one I didn't understand. I was so shook up that I leapt into the car and sped away from the station, kicking up bits of stone as I did. The gas station disappeared into the wall blackness behind me like a fading star. I dared not look back in the rearview mirror, just in case. That man was still there on the forecourt, pointing at me, dying, choking, decaying. His swollen, bloodied eyes still staring at me. That was a while ago. I managed to finish the first bottle of hooch. Now I have no idea where I'm driving to. Guess I just want to get away from the crazy bastard. Because of that, I think I've taken a wrong turn somewhere. That's what happens when you see some lone dying man sucking on his last petrol-soaked breaths at the edges of society. It sends you off the reservation too. Something's not right. Feels like tonight is our night of judgment. There's a pestilence coming. All around me are those endless bayous and swamps. The single road I'm on, carving its way down the middle of the dark mire like a great tarmac snake towards my terminus. Anyway, let's forget all that for now. I'll tell you one thing, though. Louisiana is hotter than the devil's asshole. Must be old Scratch himself coming for me. Time for a cigarette and a swig of bourbon. I think it's time for the Rolling Stones, too. Let's welcome the old bastard to my side. Shall we? 2 hours go by. Here's official. I'm lost. I don't know where in Christ's name I am. I even entertained the idea of turning back and sleeping this one off, but now I am well and truly in the back old beyond. Cajun country. So much for one wild night. This was not the type of wild I had in mind. The rows and rows of cypress trees out there in the bayous are starting to make me feel uncomfortable. And I'm still speaking into this dumb tape recorder like it means something. It's 1 in the morning and I've started on the Millers, about halfway through the crate. I think I may be heading towards Vermilion Bay, but can't be too sure. You know, they call it the Bay of Blood. Vermilion was a red substance made from mercury sulfide. Imagine that. Who even cares? The swollen silver moon is hanging high in the sky above. It's casting this weird scintillating glow over everything. Out there in the swamps is where all the Creole fishermen made their huts. Makes me scared. How the hell do people live out here? Might as well live on the far side of Saturn. The road just keeps... Wait, what the fuck is that? There's people on the road ahead. 4 of them. Shit. I'm just passing by. Jesus Christ, I think they were dragging a body off the road. I just saw a couple of shirtless, ragged people dragging something across the asphalt and into the woods back there. Whatever it wasn't moving. It looked like a body. Sheesh. There's something wet on the road. It's black. I can see my rearview mirror. What the hell? Did I just witness a murder? Their faces didn't look right, man. The waning of the moon highlighted all their disgusting features. They looked like that guy back at the gas station. Their faces were all swollen and bleeding from the eyes. Have they got the rabies too? What the hell's wrong with these people out here? I swear one of them had some kind of scythe. I don't like this, man. I'll turn him back.
Much later.
It's 2 in the morning. I guess I was pretty shook up after what I saw back down them dark roads, so I stopped off at the nearest motel I could find. The Sundance Motel, it's called. Somewhere down by Morgan City. One of them yellow-stained old lodges that only truckers and drug dealers dare stop off at. I'm sitting on a single bed in the cheapest room they had. I can't put that scene out of my head. For some reason, I can't be shut of it. I mean, what the hell are those people doing out on that road at night with that body? They move different. Like all walked like they were drunk and didn't know where they were. Something's abroad here. Feels like it's all connected somehow. The rabid man back at the gas station's trying to warn me, but warn me of what? I don't know. The motel is a sad old thing. Faded neon sign with half the letters blown out. The mold on the walls of the room is slick and black and full of promises of illness. The carpet is damp, and I'd be damned if I take my shoes off. I set out to murder my boss tonight, but instead, I ended up in the armpit of hell. Nothing else to do but drink myself into oblivion. Nothing else to do but wonder just how far off the rails I've fallen. By sunup, the last of the booze will be gone. Whoever finds this tape, if I'm no longer alive, I didn't commit suicide. The mold on the walls probably got me. Yes, that was a joke, asshole. Very funny. Ha ha. If it's any consolation, I was never going to kill my boss. I guess I just wanted to hurt him like he had hurt me. I wanted him to fear for his life. And for my sins, I'm fearing for mine. Maybe they'd go easy on me if I returned the car with a full tank of gas.
Much later into the night.
I don't know what to make of any of this. Honest to God, I don't. I just woken up in a daze on the damn floor of this shitty motel room. I'd finished all the booze, and I guess at some point in the night, I must have passed out on the carpet here. When I finally got up out of the puddle of vomit I found myself in sometime later, I looked up at the clock on the wall. It said 3:13. It still says 3:13, but that's impossible. I must have checked into this dive at 2 in the morning. That plus a couple of hours drinking and watching bad cable TV should have taken me up to at least daybreak. I remember the blur of adverts and softcore porn. But it's still nighttime out there. The clock on the wall still says 3:13. The second hand ticks but doesn't edge any further forward. Something is wrong here, but that's not what has got me so riled up, though. Something else just happened. Something I'm not sure I had the words to even explain right now. As I raised up and sat on the bed about 10 minutes ago, trying to shake my head clean of the hangover, I'd heard something. This low scratching and slapping sound. It was coming from my left, towards the bathroom. It sounded like lazy flesh rubbing against wood. Blearily, my eyes were tugged towards the bathroom door. On the other side of the cheap pine door, something was rapping against it. I dropped my gaze to the base of the door and saw that the lights were on in there. The two pillars of shadows that could have only been legs moved around in the light. Someone was in there. Someone was in the room with me. I jolted up in shock. I didn't remember ever using the bathroom. I didn't even know what it looked like. The second I'd gotten into this roach pit, I started drinking, and that was that. But when I'd woken up from the blackout, the fear sunk back into me, cold and hard. My heart pounded in my ribcage like a nuclear bomb. It was the same fear I'd felt when I saw them strangers on the road earlier, the ones that were collecting the roadkill. It was the same primal fear that a deer must feel when the hungry stare of a wolf is on its back. Instinctually, I had reached for the shotgun by the pillow. I didn't make a sound. Each movement was slow and cautious. With one smooth motion, I grabbed the shotgun and cocked it. The mechanism only gave off a faint click. I stood up from the bed. Then, with slow, soft steps, I approached the bathroom. The shotgun pointed out ahead of my torso like a protecting spear. I sucked in quiet, controlled breaths and crept towards the door. On the other side, I heard coughing, shouting, sobbing. Whatever it was once a human. I reached out and clasped the doorknob firmly in my palm. Then, with resolution in me, I yanked it open. When the door swung back and revealed what was on the other side, I screamed. There, standing in the middle of the bathroom, bathed in the twitching amber lights, was a man. Except he wasn't a man anymore. Parts of his body were all infected and swollen like they were filled with pus. The thing craned its head up and stared at me. He saw me and came staggering out of the bathroom towards me, trousers down around his ankles. His shirt was all ripped up like he'd been brawling with a crocodile. Worst of all, his face was swollen and bloated, just like all the others. The pores in his skin squirmed like they were filled with worms. "Jesus, who are you?" I think I asked him, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't. Thick black liquid poured from his mouth and eyes. His hollow eyes reflected a mind that had left long ago. Now there was only this rabid and feral animal in front of me. He coughed a bunch of spit and blood onto the carpet, then he screeched and hissed as he lurched at me, arms outstretched, ready to embrace me as one of his own. I yelped, and without even thinking, raised up the shotgun and let loose with 2 12-gauge buckshots. The shotgun kicked like a mule in my grip, and the deceased man absorbed the shots like they were nothing. I stood in front of the writhing thing and was utterly shocked. He was still standing. The 2 shots hit him dead in the chest and put a hole straight through his ribcage. Any normal human would have hit the deck like a sack of spuds, but he didn't. I remember screaming. Maybe I shouted something at him too. The man spasmed and then tried to run at me. In a split second, I let off one more shot at his head. The thunder of the shotgun sounded like a stick of dynamite going off in my ears. The man's head snapped back from the impact. Then, when his head raised back up again, it was all mangled and bloody. I just stared at what was left of his face, clutching my shotgun tight. As he stood there, his body swaying from side to side, the skin on his head peeled off like a banana. It dropped down to his neck in flaps, and the writhing black husk underneath was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I don't think I've described that properly. Let me say it like this. Underneath his skin, there were no bones. There was no skull. Instead, this thick, slithering worm came out from his throat and took the spot where the man's face used to be. I gasped and took a step back, pointing my Remington up at it. He looked like a black anaconda that had been hiding in his chest the whole time. The man's body slumped to the floor with a thud. I stood above him and peered down at the utter horror before my eyes. All around his corpse now was a strange black blood that seemed to be teeming with some kind of pond life. The slick black worm protruding from his neck then wriggled free of the body and slithered off quickly to the bathroom. It was more scared of me than I was it. It fled down the plug hole of the bath and left behind it a trail of clear ooze, like a slug. "What the fuck?" I think I had said. Then I threw up some. I tell you, I was so overwrought that I dropped my shotgun and fell to my knees before God right there and then. I prayed and prayed. What was happening scared the shit out of me. Is this punishment for my sins? Is this my perdition? I don't know. All of that was about 10 minutes ago, and the clock on the wall is still saying 3:13. I think this might be hell. Just to make sure I wasn't dreaming, I got up from the bed and peered out the yellow-stained windows of my room. In the dim parking lot of the motel were about 10 of those same people. They're waiting for me. All of them bloated and motionless, like they don't know what to do with themselves. Some are stumbling around and crowing up at the moon. Others are standing still and throwing up this tar-like substance at their feet. Their skin is bubbling with sores and boils. I don't know what's going on here, but they're all sick. There's a pestilence going around. Maybe something in the water. It all started with that man back at the gas station. I should have listened to him. God damn it. 4 hours later. It's been at least an hour now. I haven't moved. Neither have they. I'm sitting at the desk and the clock still hasn't moved forward anymore. I think this might be my end. Jesus, how did I get here? You know, I had a wife once. Been divorced about 10 years now. Clara was her name. Yeah, everything after that went to shit. I guess since the papers were signed, it all went into a downward spiral. Can't say I'm surprised. I haven't been exactly truthful, by the way. Now that it seems I'm about to join the ranks of hell, I guess I should be. He didn't fire me for underperforming. He fired me because I drank too much. Goddamn. Since Clara left me, I've been hitting the bottle pretty hard. Tried to come off it, but the withdrawal's like nothing I'd ever expected. So here I am. Just another lonely bum on his way out. I doubt I'm the only one. It hurts in your chest, you know? That razor-tipped sadness that only cuts in deeper as the years crawl by. Eventually, everything good leaves you, until you're nothing but a bloated vessel, full of cheap booze and blue ruin. In the end, you find yourself spilling your guts out over the sides like some burst mains pipe full of rag water, spewing it all out to anyone who will listen. You find yourself sitting alone in a roach pit, mumbling into a stolen tape recorder, doubting yourself, and trying to piece together the broken mirror of just how you managed to fuck your life up so much. Did I imagine the whole goddamn thing? I don't know. Part of the alcohol withdrawal is hallucinations. God, I pray it's that. But as I look across from me, back to the unnamed headless and diseased man that once was a human, he's still on the carpet not 10 feet away from me. So, I guess this must be real. I don't want to be like this. If I get out of here, I'm gonna change. I promise. Just give me one shot. Just let me live. I'm gonna make a break for it now. There are 10 of them infected outside my window, but the car's only across the parking lot. My guns are loaded, and I want to escape. If I run, I think I can make it. Well, I did say it was going to be my last night in town. Here goes nothing.
I woke up shivering. A thick layer of sweat coated my body like an oily second skin, stretching over muscles tighter than a clenched fist. The memory of the nightmare that had reduced me to this state had already slipped from my grasp. All I could remember were odd silhouettes flitting about in the darkness. It must have been horrifying, though, or else my heart wouldn't be beating against my chest with such tremendous force. The ceiling fan whirled slowly above me, letting out the odd creak as it struggled to cool my body down. Beyond time I fixed that thing, I thought as I sucked in a couple of deep breaths to calm my heartbeat before turning my neck sideways to work out the tension knots in my shoulders. Raindrops drummed against the glass window on the wall to my right. I checked my phone. 1:45 a.m. It was drizzling, like it had been all throughout the day, and the angry, swollen clouds that had blotted out the sun and tarnished the sky mackerel gray were still refusing to release the pressure pent up inside them. The shit weather had forced me to stay home, even made me cancel my scheduled visit to the grocery store. However, the torrential rain I feared just never came. I swung my legs and rolled out of bed, furiously blinking as my vision shrank behind what looked like a swarm of glittering diamonds. The fact that a sudden movement was all it took to make me see stars was but a humiliating reminder of my advancing age. Rolling my shoulders, I stepped towards the window. A fresh scent of moist wood and wet mud wafted towards me through the gaps in the window frame. The sky was pitch black. No fishhook moon, no stars, no flashing lights of passing aircrafts. Nothing. Just dark clouds that grumbled and wept at the earth. My eyes drifted downwards towards the dark red brick wall and the painted sash window of my son's bedroom, down to the floor-to-ceiling glass of the living room, then onto the cobblestone pathway that led to the small iron gate at the edge of the property. A solitary street lamp shed a wash of yellow light at the wet metal of the gate, making it gleam. A hooded figure stood next to it. My heart leapt. He was standing with his back towards me, facing the gate. He was inside the property. Motionless, head bowed, he seemed to stare at the gate as water flowed down the folds of his coat, dripping onto the ground below. I felt a sudden tightening in my chest. What was he doing here? Was he lost? In need of help? A neglected Alzheimer's patient? Didn't look like it. Didn't feel like it. I couldn't see him, but something about him, his straight posture, his broad shoulders, made me think he wasn't elderly. What else? Was he a home invader? Then why was he just standing there? The lack of active malice in his presence made me all the more unnerved. There was a certain wrongness about this man that I just couldn't put my finger on. I deliberated, calling the cops. To tell them what, exactly? I shook my head. No, there was no need to escalate things to such an extent. I would look really foolish if this all turned out to be a misunderstanding. Yeah, better to try and talk to this man. After all, if at any point I felt like I was in danger, I could always just run back, slam the door shut, and call the police like I'd been intending to all along. Of course, no need to be scared. The decision filled me with a shaky confidence that made my scalp tingle. I turned around, grabbed my phone off the bed, and marched out of the room, my breath trembling with nervous excitement. The rain sounded louder in the hallway outside my bedroom as it pattered on the skylight. Moonlight would usually filter in through the broad glass panel adorning the sloping section of the cement roof, but not tonight, though. The water splashed and spilled on the dark, almost opaque glass. I shot a glance at my son's room. The door was open, heavy blue curtains pulled to the side. He was sound asleep on his large bed, his body as oddly contorted as it usually gets when he's sleeping. I moved to the stairwell. Grabbing the polished handrail, I began my descent, wincing as the steps bent and creaked under my weight. Why was I so nervous? It was almost as if I was afraid of the man outside knowing that I was approaching him. It was ridiculous. I was going out to try to talk to him anyway, wasn't I? So why wouldn't I want him to notice me? Besides, there's no way he could possibly hear me from all the way out there, right? A flash of lightning lit up the stairwell, threw my shadow on the wall in front of me, a shadow that twitched. I gasped, swooned at the sudden fright. My fingers tightened around the wooden handrail as I cursed myself for being so jumpy. Thunder rumbled in the distance as I continued climbing down the stairs, hastening at the last 3 steps. Ahead of me was the front door, 2 long windows fixed to its sides. Thin white curtains were draped over the windows, obscuring the view outside. I considered switching the lights on, but then decided against it. Something about the light splashing out of the windows and alerting the man outside that I was here scared me. I rushed forward, calves tense, head locked straight, eyes fixed on the door. Shadows pooled around the furniture in the living room to my left, but I dared not risk a peek. The prospect of seeing something that shouldn't be there was too frightening to consider. I jolted to a halt about a hair's breadth away from the door, almost crashing into it. That would have hurt and made a lot of noise. Noise that the man outside would... Stop that. I gently rested my head against the door, felt the cool wood on my skin. My heart was racing in my chest. When was the last time I had been this terrified? All because of a strange man in a black coat standing with his back to the house? I felt my bones shiver as the image of that man, standing in the rain, flashed through my head. Was he still there? All I had to do was open the door and I'd know. I had been so full of confidence back up in my room, but now that I was actually here, with just a thin wooden door between the two of us, all courage had fled from my body. The thought of going closer to him filled my heart with an irrational dread. Why was I doing this at all? What was the point in trying to talk to him? He wasn't exactly a threat, right? He was just standing there, minding his own business. On my property. I balled my hand up into a fist, brought it up to my mouth, bit the knuckles. Then exhaled. Right. He was on my property, but he wasn't doing anything, was he? What was the point in messing with him? It seemed far more reasonable to forget about all this and go back to bed. Whatever it was, I was sure it would be over in the morning. Things that went bump in the night dissipated like the fog under the warm rays of the sun, didn't they? Fuck. I couldn't. I just couldn't. I had to at least see whether he was still there or not, or else the thought would keep niggling at the back of my mind, like a pebble stuck in a shoe. Tentatively, I reached for the white curtain drawn over the window to my left. I pulled it aside, craned my neck, and looked outside. The glass was speckled with raindrops, and it was dark out in the lawn, with the only source of light being the street lamp. But it was enough. He wasn't there anymore. Relief flooded through my body, warming it up. I forced myself to chuckle. How foolish had I been to be so scared of phantoms in the dark? It was like I was 8 years old again, reduced to whimpers by the thought of something hiding under the bed, scratching the wooden slats with its long fingernails. Ridiculous. Then, almost as if to reassert my dominance as the master of the house, I unlocked the door, pulled it open. And he was there, right at the threshold of the door, mere inches from my face. His head was bowed, like he was looking at his boots. Tangles of matted, seaweed-like hair burst out of the hood of his coat and fell down the sides of his face, a face that was old, wrinkled, with numerous folds of skin drooping and festooning his jowls. He was still, breathless, smelled like the dead things that rot at the bottom of the sea. I slammed the door shut, made sure every lock in the damn thing was in place. My heart pounded in my chest, sending blood pumping through my body. My cheeks burned with fear as a knot swelled up in my throat. Alarm bells were ringing deafeningly loud in my head, an animalistic instinct that was warning me that my very survival was at stake. What the fuck? This was too much. I had to call the cops. My hands shook as I tried to unlock my phone. My fingers, oily with sweat, slipped on the screen. After a couple of tense seconds, it flared to life. I punched the numbers in and waited for the call to connect, risked another peek outside through the window. I couldn't see him from that angle, There wasn't enough light, and he had been standing too close to the door. Too fucking close. A shudder ran through me. What the fuck was he even doing? Drip, drip, drip. I strained my ears. That sound, it was coming from somewhere close to me. Dripping water, louder and closer than what I'd been hearing until then. Droplets dripping on the floor. Wooden floor. Tears of horror and helplessness pricked my eyes. He was inside the house. Taking a measured step back, I turned my neck. Slowly, ever so slowly, not wanting to materialize my fear by looking at it. My blood froze as my eyes drifted over the unlit space to my left. I didn't even have to use my phone's flashlight. The living room was illuminated by enough traces of moonlight to outline the silhouette of the man standing behind the hand-carved sofa. I stumbled, hit my back against the wall. Drip, drip, drip. I had heard about people becoming paralyzed after coming face to face with a predator in the forest. Never quite understood how or why that happened until that moment. An intense primal terror washed over me, seeped into my very bones. I wanted to run, to shout, but my body just wouldn't obey my desperate commands. For a couple of unimaginably long moments, I stood rooted to the spot, just staring at the black silhouette of the man. And then there was a sharp intake of breath. It was hoarse, raspy, like it was pulled through a wet plastic sheet jammed into a tight throat before being stuffed into lungs full of holes. My body shivered, my knees turning so weak I was afraid I'd collapse right there. But the spell was broken. I could move again, and move I did. I bolted toward the stairs, my bare feet thudding on the hardwood floor. I could hear him following me. Squishing of wet shoes, splashing of water on the floor, rustling of the moisture-laden coat. I jumped 2 steps at a time, doing my hardest to increase the distance between us. The man's shadow loomed large on the wall, letting me know that I wasn't quite succeeding. 3 steps away from the landing on the first floor, I faltered. My foot, instead of finding hard wood, sank into darkness, and I fell face first, my skull making a sickening crack as it bounced on the handrail before my flailing hands inadvertently and thankfully cushioned it down to the floor. Needles of sharp pain stabbed my head, only to be overwhelmed by the burning agony in my twisted right foot. The man's footsteps boomed like gunshots on the stairs behind me. I bit my cheek and reached for the vertical iron bars supporting the handrail, my hands wrapped tight around the cold metal as I began pulling myself up. The movement intensified the pain in my leg, causing tears to stream down my face. Yet, with gritted teeth and strained arm muscles, I kept on heaving myself up. My stomach turned in knots in anticipation. Any second, I was going to feel cold and clammy hands on my injured leg. Any second, I was going to be yanked back into the darkness. How terrified would my son be by my screams? The poor boy wasn't even aware of what was inside the house. I crawled onto the landing, sucking in deep breaths as I leaned against the banister. The footsteps behind me abruptly ended. Did he stop? The rank stench that clung to his body like grease seemed to dissipate. I pushed myself up on my elbows, shifted my body to scan the stairwell. It was empty, like he had never even been there. I squeezed my eyes shut and groaned in frustration. Fuck! Where was he now? I couldn't see him anywhere. Not wanting to waste this momentary lull and the mind-numbing terror, I took the support of the banister and hoisted myself up on my feet, gnashing my teeth to fight through the pain. I shifted my whole weight onto my good leg and began hobbling towards my room. A flash of lightning sliced through the darkness. I saw it, for the briefest of seconds, out of the corner of my eye. He was there, outside the house, lying face down on the skylight. The footsteps started up again. The smell returned, thicker than ever, clogging my nostrils like a rotting corpse. How? How could he be in two places at once? I darted towards my bedroom, unmindful of the pain making my entire body throb, and slammed the door shut behind me, knowing that the act was pretty much useless. He could appear inside my room whenever he wished it, tear me apart, limb from limb. Sweat erupted out of my pores. It was hopeless, utterly hopeless. I bawled like a baby, my chest quaking with the sobs. A faint voice out in the hallway wrenched me out of my self-pity. "Dad?" The footsteps of the man continued, getting closer and closer. "Dad, are you okay?" No, 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 no. "Dad, where are you?" "Get back inside." The footsteps were right outside my room now. "Hey, what are you doing up so late at night?" "That's not me. That's not me." The footsteps picked up speed, drifted away from my room. My son let out a sharp gasp. My heart sank in my chest. Then, the screams. Loud and shrill, full of fear, confusion, and pain. Buried beneath them, the vile sounds of breaking bones and blood spurting out of torn vessels. My mind was a mess. Guilt, fear, shame warred endlessly. I should have done something, rushed out of the room to try and protect my son. But I couldn't, because, above all else, there was relief in my heart. Relief that he chose my son, and not me.
Will you tell us the story again, Dad? Yeah, Dad. Tell us about little Johnny's cave. Please? I still remember those days, sitting around a campfire in the backyard and listening to Dad tell that story. It was our favorite, Little Johnny's Cave. It was as cheesy as spooky campfires got back then, and you can bet me and my little sister Linda ate every bit of it up. He himself didn't care too much for telling it, though. At the time, me and Linda really didn't understand why. I guess to us it was just his way of trying to build tension, you know? Kinda like how you try to sound dramatic when you urge someone to not go looking for this or that, or don't do this, or the monster is gonna get you. Now, though, I realize it wasn't that at all. Looking back, I can remember the look he'd always get on his face when we'd beg him to tell that story. It was cold, sunken, sad, or scared even. Both, probably. It was a look that said, why do I have to talk about this? It only hurts when I do. Like I said, though, we were too young and way too excited to know or really care. I guess, in our defense, can't really expect much better from a couple of first graders who thought their dad was the coolest, coupled with a childhood filled to the brim with watching classic monster movies, can you? In any case, he'd go silent for a while, probably a solid 5 minutes or more, and just stare intently into the fire. Me and Linda knew when he saw this that things were about to get good, even if it sounded no different than the last 100-something odd times we'd heard the little Johnny's Cave tale, and usually it didn't. It was still the peak of the evening, the main event of the night. I can still see it, the way he stared coldly and distantly at the fire as he took several deep breaths, readying himself. Me and Linda always scooted closer, grabbing another marshmallow to char and stuff our faces with, while we listened. When he'd begin, he always furrowed his eyebrows intensely with concentration. A long time ago, two little boys, about y'all's age now, ran off to play hide-and-seek while they was on vacation up here in Greenview Pines. That was their favorite game, see? They loved trying to find each other in them dense woods. Them trees, you see, they was always tall and big around, and they grouped together. This made it easy for little fellas like these two boys to get themselves lost. But that was part of the fun, you see. They liked getting lost. That's why they played it so much. They always pushing to see how long it'd take them to find each other. Well, soon they figured out the woods. Started memorizing which trees made good spots to hide, which ones weren't. You see, they was getting bored. So one day they was walking out in the woods, looking at all the big, tall green trees, wondering how to make the game more fun. That's when the little brother, Colin, saw what looked like a big old cave in the side of the mountain. Now this cave was big enough to fit the three of us in there, 5 times over, all at once. But what was even better was how dark it was. See, in that cave, not even the sun could break through. It was dark. It was spooky. There was no way his brother would find him in there. "Bet you'll never find me, Johnny," little Colin shouted to his older brother before running off into the cave. Johnny, caught off guard, shouts to little Colin to wait up. But now, of course, little Colin was eager. He wanted to get hit quick before his big brother could be able to find him. It wasn't long before Johnny couldn't see Colin no more, disappearing into that deep, dark cave. "Colin!" he'd shout as loud as he could. "Colin, where you going?" But little Colin didn't answer. He was long gone. Johnny started searching frantically for his little brother. When he found the cave, he saw little Colin running too. He tried calling out his name one more time. "Colin, where are you?" From inside the cave, Johnny heard what sounded like the pattering of little feet across the stone floor, going deeper into the cave. Wanting to catch up to his little brother, Johnny starts running into the cave after him. He ran and ran, deeper and deeper into the cave. But it seemed like the longer he ran, the more the cave seemed to stretch. The deeper he went, the darker it became. Soon, Johnny couldn't see anything at all. All he could do was follow the soft pattern of little Colin's footsteps. Johnny was getting scared now. He wanted to go home, but more than that, he just wanted to find his little brother. "Colin!" he cried. "Colin, where are you?" Still, all he heard was little feet. He kept following them until suddenly, Johnny thought he could smell something burning. The smell was strong, and he could feel smoke burning in his eyes, like this fire here. From ahead, in the dark part of the cave, there was a voice that called out to Johnny. A voice that sounded like a snake that was being choked. "Just a little closer. Come on, just a little closer, little boy." Now, Johnny knew that wasn't his little brother's voice, but he didn't know what to do. He was scared now, terrified, in fact. The burning smell got closer and closer. The fumes from the smoke were making him gag now. "You can't escape me, little boy. You're mine now," the voice hissed. This made Johnny want to run, take off back for home. But soon he was turned around. The exit was gone. No sunlight, no hole at the other side of the cave. Nothing. What was he going to do? He could feel something was getting close now, from deep inside the cave, something bad. You're mine now. You'll never leave my cave. Johnny was terrified and was about to take off the way he came when, from inside the cave, he heard what sounded like a little boy screaming. It wasn't just any little boy either. Johnny knew it was his little brother. "Colin!" he shouted. But his little brother only kept screaming, squealing like someone has put his little foot in a bear trap. "I'm coming, Colin!" He took off, running deeper and deeper. The further he went, the louder and more painful his little brother's screaming got. Along with this, Colin smelled something burning again, kind of like his weenier and roasting here. See? But Johnny just kept on running. He had to keep going. He had to rescue his little brother. The screaming got louder and louder. "Colin!" he screamed. "I'm coming, Colin! Hold on!" He couldn't see nothing no more. Everything was dark. All he could hear was his little brother squealing until eventually he tripped over something. When he looked up, there were now 2 large white evil eyes beating down on him. Little Johnny froze. He couldn't move. Then, from under the eyes, the monster opened his mouth and grinned, showing off long, sharp teeth. The monster held something up in front of a little Johnny that finally made him wet himself, screaming. The monster's hand was little Colin. Little Johnny tried to reach for him. Little Colin's skin suddenly caught fire, burning away all his skin till he was nothing but bones. "Now it's your turn," the monster told him. That's when the monster tried grabbing him. Little Johnny was too quick. The monster missed, and little Johnny took off, heading back quick as his little legs carried him back toward the entrance of the cave. Just like before, he ran and ran. You could hear the monster hot on his little tail. He couldn't stop running, else he was a goner. Eventually, little Johnny realized, like how, when he came in, he couldn't see any light ahead. No matter how far he ran, it only got darker and darker in the cave. He couldn't see, and his legs were getting tired, but he couldn't stop. He had to keep going, or the monster was going to get him. So he just kept running. They say he still is today running around in that deep, dark cave, still trying to find his way out. If you see the cave, listen real close. You'll hear his little feet. Tap, tap, tap. Still trying to get out. His voice would always sound cold when he finished. He never said anything like, "the end," or tried to make any exaggerated faces to signal that he was just trying to give his kids a good spook. No, the man's face was like stone, chiseled and stoic. And for a long time, we'd all just sit in silence. Me and Linda just absorbing the story and its intensity once again, while the old man would just sit there, staring dead silent, almost like he was in a trance at the fire. Like I said, I've heard that exact same story word for word, at least 100 or more times growing up. He never tried to change it, like so many others do when trying to tell the same story over and over again. To keep it fresh or whatever. No, each and every time it was always the same story. Details and all, verbatim. Always with that same stone-cold stare. Looking back, I think even then I noticed this, which made me all the more fascinated with it. See, when he told that story, he wasn't just telling a campfire story to a couple of kids. But it was like he was telling something that happened to him in a way. I guess that was the other reason we loved it so much. The way it felt so real. And again, he never tried to embellish or exaggerate anything with the way he sounded. He told the story, and that was what happened. Every time. Of course, eventually, time moved on, and so did we, sort of. Me and Linda grew up, made friends to go hang out with, got involved with clubs or sports, and just generally ditched our backyard campfire tradition on the weekends. That said, and though I couldn't speak for Linda at the time, that story, Little Johnny's Cave, was still one of the coolest things to me. I remember how I used to always try and tell my friends the story, either at lunch or at recess. Of course, I knew they didn't believe it like I did. I couldn't tell it like Dad would. I'd always end up somehow giving away that it was just a story. No matter how hard I tried to look and sound as cold or distant as the old man, I just couldn't pull it off. I guess I just couldn't make it real like him, you know? That was the other thing. I always wondered how or why he was able to make it real like that. What was his secret? What gave him that edge? What made him go cold when we asked him to tell that story? What scared him so much about it? Back then, I never really tried asking him. I guess, I felt like that wouldn't do me much good, outside of getting fed some BS like, "That's just me spooking you. There's no cave," or something lame like that. Or B, I just felt like that would have been too easy, you know? I mean, that's always half the fun with this stuff, isn't it? Imagining you're the one tumbling down the rabbit hole. But in real life? I remember how I'd daydream often in class. And yes, this did result in awkward situations. Or at nighttime, I'd be the one running off into little Johnny's cave. I'd run deeper and deeper, losing myself in the darkness. I'd run into the monster, imagining it to be this hulking beast, or even the devil, with long teeth and claws, able to breathe fire like a dragon, and he'd try to chase me, but I'd always outrun him. Of course, in my dreams, I'd always find my way back out again, and sometimes, instead of running, I'd stand and fight the monster, always winning, of course. Point is, it had an impact on me back then, and it never went away, even now. Though now, seeing the truth behind what happened, it has a much bigger impact on me, one that's far more real, and far more haunting than even Dad could have made it seem around the fire. It was a couple of weeks ago. Classes at college had just ended for the year, and I was throwing a party with some of my dorm mates to celebrate. Like all parties, we had chips, dip, music, the hottest chicks on campus, and plenty of beer with a little extra on the side if you take my meaning. It had been going wild all night until about 2:30 in the morning when most, at least the ones still conscious, started heading out. I and a couple other close friends, however, were still wide awake. I was vegged out across the couch, with Larry sprawled out in one of the beanbag chairs on the floor, and Eddie in the recliner on the right, all of us damn near completely wasted. I guess because we were bored or because we were just out of our senses, it was suggested that we have ourselves a little contest on who could tell the scariest story. Basically, the deal was that we'd all tell one and vote at the end as to whose story was the scariest. Larry went first with some generic story about a guy who gets murdered with his hands coming back to kill people or something like that. Eddie followed that up with an equally cheesy, quote-unquote, true encounter with the Wendigo. You could tell it was fake when he describes the way he fought the creature and escaped with his life. They were goofy as hell, sure. Not scary in the slightest, but all the same, enjoyable enough to listen to, at least when you're intoxicated. When it came to be my turn, though, you bet your ass I told the story of Little Johnny's cave. Like before, I tried as much as ever to mimic the way Dad told the story, though I personally doubted it actually felt like when he did it. It seemed to achieve the same effect, sure enough, judging from the looks of speechlessness on my friends' faces when I finished. "Dude," Larry exclaimed, "I think you just won." He snickered while Eddie just continued staring in shock at me. "Where'd you come up with that one?" I chuckled. I didn't. I grew up hearing that one. Larry's eyes went wide with amazement again, mouthing, "Holy crap!" "Glenview Pines," Eddie piped up, still staring somewhat nervously at me. Me and Larry looked over at him. "Didn't y'all say that happened in Glenview Pines?" "Yeah, why?" "I've heard of that place before. My folks used to go hiking up there." He shook his head. "Just my folks. They used to go there when I was younger whenever they wanted some alone time, away from me and my brothers for a weekend. They'd even bring back these cool little stones as souvenirs for us kids. They also used to talk about how pretty it was there." He snickered before adding, "Or at least they tried to, though God knows we didn't give a damn about listening to him back then." "Oh, so you didn't think they've ever seen the cave?" He thought for a second before shrugging. "They may have. Hell, them gems they used to bring back had to come from somewhere. Like I said, though, I never really bothered paying much attention when they tried talking about their trips." "Sounds like you in history class," Larry quipped. Eddie smirked and flipped him off. "Guess some things never change, huh?" I snorted at this. It was true. He usually did end up falling asleep during almost every world civilizations lecture. Granted, they were 6 a.m. classes. The coffee shops on campus wouldn't open until 7. Lucky for him, I, being a good friend that I am, always sat behind him and made sure to wake him up when the professor arrived to begin. "Hey," Larry piped up again. "Bro, I just had an idea." We looked at him. "Why don't we take a trip up there?" Me and Eddie looked at each other and then back to Larry. "Think about it. We've always been talking about trying to hang out somewhere for a weekend once class is ended. Why not?" He looked at me and said, "Who knows? We might even stumble on Little Johnny's cave." He followed this up by making ghost noises with his big eyes. Eddie and I snickered at this. "Hell, I'd be down," I said, turning to Eddie. "What about you, Ed? Want to join in?" He thought for a moment before replying, "Can't. I'm already booked to spend most of the summer with Hannah and her folks at the beach." Larry scoffed. "Typical, passing up time with your friends to hit the beach with your girl, huh?" I laughed again. It really was amusing to watch these two go at it. Ed just rolled his eyes and flipped them both barrels. Larry sighed and said, "Well, looks like it's you and me, bro." "Right on," I replied, excited. We fist bumped and Eddie looked at his watch before saying he had to head back to his dorm to pack for his trip to the beach. After teasing him again, we wished him luck and then he left. For about a week or so, when I wasn't packing, I started looking at Greenview Pines online. From the pictures I saw, I could tell you one thing. These folks weren't kidding when they said it was pretty. Let's just say either someone had the most high-def quality camera or some seriously wicked editing skills when taking these pictures, or the place was just so beautiful that none of that was necessary to make them look so good. The place was huge, too, with an abundance of hiking trails. Plenty of areas to travel through, as well as get yourself lost in. Curious, I looked around to see if there were any caves in the area, either pictured or listed in an article. Found one or two that were pictured, but no real details on them as far as what they were like on the inside, or how deep they went, etc. That led me to actually try Googling Little Johnny's Cave. Of course, nothing really came up, which was about what I'd expected, but still, nothing lost in trying, right? Though I was able to find an old news article entitled, "Little Boy Declared Missing in Mountain Cave." Intrigued, I clicked on it, taking me to a forum post from a couple years back with the article. The article itself was dated back in early June of 1961. It was a pretty quick read, admittedly, with a clear lack of any real details. Basically, it read that a family went on a trip to the mountains that summer, and their two boys, two elementary school best friends, obviously neither of which were named in print or pictured in the post, went off one afternoon to play in the woods. Apparently, though, come nightfall, neither of them came back. It took a little over a week, even having to get the state troopers to canvass the entire mountainside with a fine-tooth comb, before finally one of the brothers was found again, but not the other. According to the article, when the boy was found, understandably petrified, he kept crying to authorities that he lost his friend. There wasn't anything I was able to find after that, though, other than that the missing boy, even after a massive 2.5-year search, was never found. I tried doing a search for the article itself, wondering if maybe I could dig up anything else, like where in the mountains or even which mountain. This resulted, though, in the same headline being brought up, with no other sort of details, basically meaning it was more or less the same thing from the forum post. The only difference this time being that the boys were both pictured in this one. The one that was missing I didn't recognize, but the other one they found, did look somewhat familiar. It reminded me of the way I looked back in my old elementary school pictures. When I looked to see where the paper was printed, though, I saw that it was from a small town area located just a little ways down from Glenview Pines. Well, at least there's some connection, I thought, finally deciding to call it quits. I knew now that something actually happened in Glenview a long time ago, and it involved a little boy going missing. Of course, what I didn't know was where, given that no specific area in the mountainside was mentioned when detailing where the boys went missing or where the first one was found, including any mention of a cave. It was that Friday that me and Larry hit the road. The drive itself was largely a quiet one after about the first half hour after leaving town. That was until we actually got into Glenview Pines, where neither one of us could stop gawking at the scenery. Remember what I said about the online photos? Well, I could see now that there was no kind of editing involved. All of it was 100% real. We actually spent a good 20-something odd minutes or so just driving around, sightseeing. Eventually, Larry spotted an overlook area close to a nearby trail where we could park, and we got out and stretched our legs. To save space, we decided early on that we weren't going to bother with tents or anything like that for this trip, opting to just sleep in my SUV for a few days that would be there. So with just the clothes on our backs and our small backpacks, we headed into the woods. It was about 1:30 when we started. I figured we'd be able to hike for a few hours and then head back to the SUV around 6, making it back before sunset when it would get dark. As we went along, the trees seemed to get more and more grouped together, almost compacted. Even in spite of this, they seemed to stand out all the same, individually. Each of them were tall and broad, all of them with lush, lively green leaves. Some of them, particularly, of course, the younger ones, I noticed weaved in intricate ways, competing for sunlight. Because of this, losing ourselves in the scenery like this, I actually damn near forgot completely about the time. Coincidentally, it was right as we'd stopped at a small clearing, a break off from the trail with a small riverbank, and undoubtedly the clearest and most beautiful creek I'd ever seen, and probably ever would see in my entire life. Larry thought to ask me what time it was. My eyes went wide when I saw that it was already 4. "We gotta head back," I said. "Damn," Larry replied. "Can't we rest for a bit?" I looked at the sky. The sun was just starting its downward trek toward the horizon. "It's gonna get dark soon, dude. And with the trees as close together as they are, it'll be impossible to see anything once the sun goes down. And we don't have any flashlights either." Yeah, okay, I'm coming." He grunted as he made his way back up to his feet. "It's a shame, too," he said. "This would have made for a nice little R&R spot. He shrugged and said, "Oh well, maybe tomorrow." I noticed he seemed to trail off at the end of his last sentence, directing his focus to something off to my right. "What?" I asked him. "What is it?" "Is that," I began. "Is that what I think it is?" "What? What are you talking about?" He pointed in the direction he was looking. I didn't see anything at first. "I don't see anything. What's up?" "You don't see that? The opening of that cave over there?" My heart slowly started to beat faster. Now, concentrating closer, sure enough, there it was. A large opening in the side of the mountain. "Yeah, I see it." He started off towards it. "Wait, what are you doing?" "I want to see inside it. It'll only take a moment, I promise." He jogged over to it, and I quickly followed after him. We both ran to the cave, noticing the eerie way it sort of got bigger the closer we came to it. We then stopped just outside of the mouth, and we saw that it was at least 30 or so feet long and at least 20 or 30-something feet wide. Enough to fit the three of us inside 5 times over. From the entrance, I couldn't see anything inside. Not even a foot ahead of us was visible. Everything was a black, seemingly boundless hole in the mountainside. So dark not even the sun could break through. Now a shiver was crawling up and down my spine. This couldn't be. Could it? I was completely speechless, looking at it from the mouth. Fear and excitement was slowly building in the pit of my stomach at the same time. Had I done it? Had I just found my fabled little Johnny's cave? What was in there? Would I hear his footsteps echoing off the walls of the cave? Would I run into the monster? Curiously, I actually kept my ear at the entrance to see if I could hear the soft pattering of little feet across the stone. I heard something that had a similar tempo, for lack of any better words, to footsteps, but I couldn't tell what they were. Probably just droplets of dew from the limestone or something, I told myself. But even still, my imagination couldn't help but kick into maximum overdrive by this point. What's in there? I don't know exactly how long I stood there, gawking in amazement like this. Another 20 minutes, maybe? Could have been 30? But it was shattered abruptly when I watched Larry start shambling inside. "Larry, wait!" I called to him. "Don't worry. I just want to go for a look for a minute. I'll be right back. Just hold on." I watched him start to walk deeper and deeper, running his hand along the wall of the cave. I looked at the sky. Now the sun was already a quarter of the way down. "Dude, we don't have time. We can come back tomorrow. It's going to get dark soon." Inside the cave, already mostly gone from sight, I heard Larry shout back, teasing, "What, you afraid of the dark? You scared the monster gonna get you?" Then heard him walk deeper into the cave, disappearing completely from view. "Dude, come on, quit screwing around. We need to get back." I got no response this time. I sighed. "Fine, but when you're stumbling around lost in the woods in the dark, don't come crying to me." With that, I turned and started to make my way back to the SUV. I didn't make it but 5 feet away, however, before I realized that Larry had the keys to the SUV. I'd given them to him in the event we had an emergency run back, also known as he forgot something, as he often tended to do. Damn it, I thought, slapping my forehead. Now I had to go after him. Almost without thinking, I sprinted into the cave. "Larry!" I shouted. "Hey, come on, man, seriously. We need to go." No answer. "Larry?" I slowed down. Everything was dark around me, a silent black void. I took up my phone and turned on the flashlight, which at best lit up a small radius around me, but basically nothing else. All I could see was the dark, solid stone of the cave around me. Taking another look at my phone, I realized I was screwed again when I saw that the battery life read 25%. Great. "Larry!" I called again. "Damn it, come on, it's 6 now. The sun's already set." silence. Where the hell is he? Where'd he go? He couldn't have gotten that far, could he? I started walking further, albeit a good bit slower, more hesitant. I couldn't suppress a shiver that shook through my body in a uniformed convulsion. I won't lie, I was actually getting nervous here, scared even. Even with the light I had, the dim, almost dead, and already near useless amount of it, all I could see ahead of me was darkness. Maybe darkness isn't the word for it, though. Maybe void would be more appropriate. You see, it wasn't just dark. It wasn't just dead silent. It was empty. Ahead of me was basically a black hole that looked and felt like it went on for eternity without end. Of course, though, it has to end somewhere, right? I wondered, trying to grasp onto some kind of hope. It's only just a cave, right? You can't stretch that much further, can it? Is this what it was like for... I stopped, shaking my head. I wasn't about to start nurturing the idea. Get a grip. Just find Larry's dumbass and get out. My heart shook when I heard an ear-splitting shriek in the distance. Larry! Immediately, I broke from my stupor and took off further into the cave where I heard the noise. I could hear groans of pain trailing from ahead. Larry, hang on, I'm coming! The more I ran, despite seeming to get closer to where the sounds were coming from, I still seemed at the same time to somehow get no closer to it. Larry, where are you? Here. I heard from somewhere off to my left. Are you okay? He groaned. I think my leg's broken. My eyes widened and I ran at full speed in his direction. Because I couldn't see anything, though, that meant I couldn't see him either. That is, until I ended up tripping right over him, face-planting right into the stone ground of the cave. Larry let out another shriek of pain. Damn it! There's my leg! Larry, hold on, I said, scrambling from my bag. I started shuffling around until I was able to find the quote-unquote first aid kit I brought, also known as a Ziploc bag with a thing of Band-Aids, Neosporin rubbing alcohol, and a large roll of gauze. I pulled out the gauze and started looking around for a stick or something to use as a splint. Larry was in hysterics, writhing and clutching his leg. Calm down, breathe, I said as I started to bandage a nearby twig to his leg, having, luckily, managed to find a decent enough sized stick. He couldn't, though. He was in too much pain, and I was worried he'd start going into shock. I pulled a water bottle from my bag. Here, keep this against your leg. It's not ice, but it's all I got. He managed to calm down just a little when I said this. Enough, at least, to actually hold the bottle against his leg. I knew he was going to need serious medical attention, but when I went to try and use my phone, unsurprisingly, there was no service. As well as this, the battery was almost dead, which meant that it wouldn't be long before I'd end up losing what little light I had to work with. I started looking frantically around for something, anything to use for making a fire. Finally, I was able to find a couple of rocks lying around that, looking closer, looked like they might be obsidian. Take off your shirt. What are you doing? Larry groaned as I began taking off my own shirt and setting them in a pile, with the remaining sticks underneath them, before scraping the rocks together. Hoping for a miracle, I replied. Sure enough, said miracle was granted, and a spark was generated. The shirts caught almost immediately. I knew it wouldn't last long, but maybe, if we were careful, it could last long enough to find us a way out. Of course, that was a hell of a lot easier said than actually done. With no signal, no other source of light, and Larry's leg, bent in every different way from what it's supposed to be, we were essentially stuck. I tried for the first time to look behind my back to the exit. It was then, though, that I found that I couldn't see the other side. At first, I thought it was just because it was nighttime. After looking back towards the fire, I realized that it wasn't. It wasn't just dark, it was empty. In other words, the opening was completely gone. Almost like it hadn't been there at all. What the hell? I said aloud. What is it? The opening, the way out, dude. It's gone. He groaned, struggling to bring his head up. What are you talking about? It's right... Wait. What the hell? His eyes were wide open again, despite having been in excruciating pain. He started hyperventilating. Where's the exit? Calm down. I'm gonna get us out of here. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Me and Larry's heads snapped backward toward the depths of the cave at the same time. My heart stopped cold. What in the name of God was that? Stomp, stomp, stomp. What the hell, dude? Larry cried, hyperventilating again. From ahead, there was still nothing visible but darkness, yet the stomping got closer and closer. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Panic flooded through me. I could feel every urge, every instinct, trying to force me to move, to take off and run, but I couldn't. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Larry started squirming. We gotta get out of here, man, he squealed. We gotta get out of here. He started struggling to drag himself towards me. Stomp, stomp, stomp. That was when I realized that the fire I'd made was fading. I noticed, though, that it wasn't exactly like it was flickering or anything like that. It was more like it was dimming, like it was being sucked away or siphoned by the darkness ahead. The same was true with my phone, seeing it start to flicker before going completely dark again. Stomp, stomp, stomp. The more the fire faded, the more I realized that the darkness was actually moving closer to us. With each earth-shattering step towards the two of us, I could see the black wall of nothing inch closer and closer, swallowing more and more of the cave with it. It was right on top of us when the fire finally blinked out like an old light bulb. We were engulfed in darkness again. Total, pure, and unadulterated darkness. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Larry, I cried, spinning in circles, completely blind. Larry, where are you? I got no response from him. Instead, I was only met with a stomping. When I ran forward to try and find him, I felt something pull and stretch me from every different direction all at once, trying to pull me apart. I looked to see what it was, but still saw nothing. Only darkness. The darkness itself was attempting to rip me apart. It was alive, and it was hungry. Larry! I called out again, straining. He made no reply. The darkness must have already taken him. The longer I stayed in the darkness, the more I felt as though it was trying to sear the flesh from my bones. In the back of my mind, I could hear those words coming back to me. The monster. You're mine now, and you'll never leave my cave. That's when I realized what I had to do. I had to do what little Johnny did. I had to run, summoning every minute reserve of stamina I had in me, and then some. I turned and bolted like a bat straight out of hell toward the exit, or at least where I first thought the exit originally was. It was a struggle to move or even breathe. The stomps were in hot pursuit behind me. Like with before, all I could see was blackness ahead. The feeling of being stretched was coming from all around me now. The darkness had me encircled, yet I still ran. I couldn't stop. I have to get out! Because of this, I don't know how long, or really how far I'd run, when I'd suddenly tripped and was sent tumbling. I could feel an excruciating pain shoot through my right arm when I tried breaking my fall, clearly having broken it. I struggled back to my feet and started sort of limp running. As much as it hurt, I had to keep going. I could feel my lungs starting to ache. I was afraid at any second I'd collapse again, and this time I wouldn't be able to will myself back up. Then the darkness, the cave, the monster would have me like it had Larry. Stomp, stomp, stomp. I'm not going to make it. Then, as if an angel was extending me some sort of blessing or divine intervention, I saw, dead ahead, through the darkness, the opening of the cave. I pushed my body beyond all limit to break into a sprint for it. Behind me, I could hear it quickening its own stride, realizing that I was about to get away. It was getting desperate. Stomp, 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 stomp. In one last burst, I launched myself from where I was standing out of the cave. Once again, I was sent rolling and tumbling into the woods. When I finally landed still, my body instantly racked all over, with aches and pains in almost every part of my body. I opened my eyes and looked up. Above me was the night sky, dark silhouettes of trees leering over me. I'd have jumped for joy if not for the pain coursing through me. I'd done it. I made it. I'm alive. I was able to let out a strained laugh of relief. The feeling was soon replaced with alarm. Larry! He's still in there. I looked up and over to the cave. I wanted to go back for him, to rescue him from the cave, just like little Johnny with his little brother. At the same time, though, I knew that'd be no good. Even if he were still alive, not consumed by the darkness like how I almost was, I was in no shape to be able to get him out of there. Thoughts flooded my head, imagining Larry screaming in terror, his skin being slowly burned away until only his bones remained. What do I do? In the end, I decided to try heading back to the SUV, where I'd then drive out to the nearest town to find help. Admittedly, I wasn't sure what good anybody else would do, given that it wasn't like I could give any sort of detail as to where in the mountain the cave was. Plus, I knew the chances of finding him inside, even what could have been left of him, alive or dead, would be wafer slim to absolutely none. It was difficult, having to try and backtrack in the dark, exhausted and in a lot of pain from my arm, as well as the effects of the darkness still only slowly wearing off. But I couldn't have cared less. I was determined to make it back to my vehicle. Eventually, come the very beginning of daybreak, I found the SUV again. The last speck of energy was spent shambling for and inside. After that, completely spent physically, emotionally, and mentally, I just laid back in my seat and let exhaustion overtake me. When I awoke again, it was broad daylight outside, and my body still ached. I knew with my hand I wouldn't be able to drive. When I tried to use my phone, it wouldn't turn on. Looking around, though, I found that Larry had left his phone in the SUV. Another stroke of luck found me when I saw that from where I was, I actually had service and was able to call for help. It was about an hour and a half that I just sat in the SUV before an ambulance was able to arrive. From that point to now, only a few days later, much of this is just history. I was, of course, taken to the hospital where I recovered. When asked what happened, I just said that I fell while hiking the mountain. I didn't try telling the doctors, or anyone else for that matter, about the cave or Larry. Why bother? It's not like they could even find it, much less help. I also feigned ignorance when trying to figure out what was causing me to feel weak all over, drained. I was finally discharged a few hours later, where I then returned home. The whole way, all I could do was think about everything that just happened. What was that in the cave? I mean, I know it was darkness, sure, but how was it so alive? This led me to finally break my little unspoken rule I'd talked about earlier, and ask the one person who'd actually be able to possibly give me some proper answers. Dad. It was yesterday morning that I decided to pay him and Ma a visit. They, of course, were ecstatic that I was in town, and I told them that I was glad to see them. For a while, I just sat and just talked with the both of them for a while until Ma said she, regrettably, had to leave to play bingo with friends. After she left, That was when I finally decided to ask Dad. Like he would back then when I was little, his face dropped abruptly into that trademark look of stoicism. Dad, I pushed. Where'd you hear that story from? Who told it to you? He just stared coldly at me. Nobody told me, son. He replied in a grave tone. I didn't hear it either. I saw him shudder. He didn't say anything else after that. Obviously, I wanted to push him, but I could tell I'd already spoiled the cheer from earlier. As it turned out, though, he wouldn't need to say anything more anyway. As I apologized and was about to leave, Dad stopped me and thrusted something into my chest. If you really want the truth, he said, I'll tell you all you need to know about little Johnny's cave. He then turned and walked away while I did the same, tucking it away in my pocket. It was when I returned back to the dorm that I looked at what he gave me. It was an old photo of two little boys in what looked to be the woods, with one of the boys presumably being him, judging by how familiar he looked, while the other was someone I didn't recognize at all. Though a closer look set my head spinning. I realized that these just weren't any two boys. They were the ones pictured in the articles online. I also recognized the woods to be the clearing from Grenview Pines, where we'd found the cave. The boy, standing next to Dad, had a circle drawn around him in red, and under it were the words, "Haven't forgotten you, Colin. John." That's when it all clicked. That's when I finally understood, after all these years and after what happened to me, why Dad was always so scared of that story. I understood just how real it finally was. He was little Johnny. He lost his best friend, a brother, to the darkness of the cave like I lost Larry. Because of this, even though he made it out in the end, there was, and would always be, a part of him that's trapped there, surrounded and being ripped apart by the darkness, trying still to find its way out again. And now, the same is true for me. I'm going to end this by saying that there's a reason to fear the dark. It's a mysterious thing, capable of feats evidently still not yet known. As well as this, it's hungry, and unless you run to the light, it will take you and devour you the way it did my friend and almost did with me. I don't know if Larry could still be alive. I doubt it, of course. But part of me still wants to hope that he's still in there, still running to find a way out. Sometimes, I think I even hear it. His footsteps, still trying to get out.
Hoodlums. In 2008, on a Tuesday evening in San Augustine, a small East Texas town, Bill Vickers and Gabriel Lechuga lingered next to a burning 55-gallon barrel. On the ground next to the barrel lay a pile of non-metallic sheath cable stolen from a construction site. The non-metallic sheath cable, also known as Romex, contained solid copper wiring and could be sold to a scrapyard for around $4 per pound. The men were thieves and would steal anything of value. The previous night, they snuck into a new home being built and cut the wiring from the walls and ceiling. To fetch a higher price for the copper at a metal recycler, the insulation needed to be removed, so they were tossing the Romex into the burning barrel. Living in a run-down mobile home park, the two men showed no regard for their neighbors as the insulation created toxic smoke that engulfed the surrounding homes. Bill plopped down on the tailgate of his truck, then popped open a can of beer. At 45 years old, Bill had never done an honest day's work. Wearing a grimy yellow t-shirt with an image of a marijuana leaf, faded and tattered camo pants, and worn-out tennis shoes, it appeared he'd just crawled out from under a rock. He also exhibited the stereotypical appearance of a drug addict. Slender frame, rough skin, unkempt and greasy black hair, rotted teeth, and a scraggly beard. A career thief, his primary income came from receiving welfare, food stamps, and Section 8 housing. Hence the dilapidated 1971 mobile home he lived in. To supplement his income, mainly to buy drugs, he broke into vehicles and houses, stealing anything of value. He didn't like thieving copper. It took too much effort, and he didn't care for the physical work aspect of it. Stealing the wiring created a financial burden for the builder. Not only did the builder have to incur the cost of replacing the stolen Romex, which cost about $2,500, but the labor for an electrical contractor to reinstall the ruffian usually cost another $2,500. Bill and Gabriel would only get about $1,000 at the metal recycler, compared to the builder's total loss of around $5,000. Thieves are never concerned about the actual damage and cost they bestow upon others. The two thieves not only stole electrical wiring from houses, but if the mechanical system was installed, they would also cut the copper refrigeration piping, creating an additional loss for the builder. Fortunately for the builder, most plumbers nowadays install PEX, a polyethylene pipe for the potable water supply system instead of a copper pipe. Otherwise, the builders would be enduring an even greater loss. Bill chugged his beer, then tossed the can on the ground next to the other empty containers in the random trash. How much you think we gonna be able to fetch for this pile of copper? Gabriel scratched his chin as he scrutinized the pile. That's probably about 200 or 300 pounds, so anywhere from 800 to 1,200 bucks. Gabriel, a 35-year-old Hispanic man, sported a stocky physique with a beer gut, bald head, large handlebar mustache, and gang-related tattoos covered his arms and neck. He donned a black t-shirt, blue jean pants, and black combat boots. During his teenage years, he lived in Houston, Texas, where he ran with the gang. Growing up fighting, stealing, vandalizing, and slinging dope, he possessed a violent temperament and exhibited little to no empathy for others. Unbeknownst to Bill, Gabriel harbored a dark secret. 3 years ago, he robbed a bank in Houston, murdering the clerk in the process, so he moved to San Augustine to hide out at his cousin's apartment. A short time after that, Gabriel broke into a house, and during the burglary, he found Emma Hawkins, a 25-year-old school teacher, asleep in her bed. He raped her numerous times over the night, then cut her throat. The authorities never linked a suspect to the crime. Bill opened another can of beer. We need to probably lay off stealing copper for a while until shit simmers down. Gabriel tossed a roll of wire into the barrel, engulfing the air with embers. Why? It's easy pickings.
Dude, everyone's pissed about it, and I heard the cops are gonna start hiding out in some of the houses so they can bust whoever's stealing the copper.
He pulled a flask from his rear pocket, then plopped down in a lawn chair.
Where the hell are you hearing that shit from? That's the word on the street. You mean those crackheads you hang out with? They're not crackheads, and it's also been in the news. In fact, Channel 10 did a story about it yesterday. They even gave a description of my fucking truck.
Bullshit.
Look it up yourself.
Gabriel pulled out his cell phone and searched for Channel 10 News. Sure enough, the story went into detail about copper being stolen from construction sites. A description of a vehicle was also given, an orange late 90s single-cab Ford Ranger, a Confederate flag covering the top of the cab, and the number 01 painted on each door. The article stated the driver was a person of interest.
So what? They can't prove shit. If I get pulled over, the cops are gonna ask why my truck was in that subdivision.
Just say you're a framer and we're looking for work.
But I don't know shit about framing.
Then just tell the fuckers you clean up job sites.
I've hauled scrap metal before, so that would be a good excuse.
Gabriel grumbled as he eyed Bill's truck. I've always told you that damn truck stands out like a sore dick. You need to get something else so this shit doesn't happen again. Not having a pot to piss in, Bill revered his truck and considered it his prized possession. He patted the bed as he sat on the tailgate.
This is my whip, boy. I ain't getting rid of it.
Being over 25 years old, the truck not only showed its age, but Bill had painted it orange with cans of spray paint, and hand-painted the Confederate flag and the number 01 with latex house paint using a paintbrush. It's a piece of shit.
Maybe, but it's my piece of shit, and it's paid for.
Bill lit a cigarette.
So now what the fuck we gonna do to make extra cash?
Not sure, but I'll figure something out. Gabriel started to put up his phone, but an advertisement popped up. Normally he ignored clickbait like everyone else, but this one caught his eye. He clicked on it, opening another news article. Hey man, check this shit out. He handed his phone to Bill. Bill noticed a photo of a graveyard and shiny flower vases stood at every tombstone. The article stated Cedar Creek Cemetery received a grant for 300 new flower vases to replace the old ones, and the work was completed last weekend.
So what? They got new vases.
They're fucking made of bronze, and I bet we can fetch $10 to $15 a piece for them at the recycler. Cedar Creek Cemetery was located just a few miles down the road from the mobile home park and one of the oldest cemeteries in Texas, with graves dating back to the early 1800s. Born and raised in San Augustine, Bill grew up hearing countless horror stories and other strange tales about the eerie cemetery and its caretaker, an old man named Ben Hamilton, and not once has he ever stepped foot on the sacred ground.
Fuck that. I'm not messing around with that graveyard.
Gabriel sometimes mixed Spanish with English. Don't tell me your ass is miedo a los fantasmas.
You know I only know Spanish curse words.
Are you scared of ghosts?
Well, I don't believe in that shit. And that's not it, so just drop it.
Gabriel lit a cigarette, then slouched in his chair. You need to man up and stop acting like a pinche perra.
I'm not a fucking bitch. That graveyard is evil, and the old man is some kind of demon or something, and he lures people there so he can punish them for their sins.
What old man?
Bill Hamilton. He's the gravedigger.
First off, demons, the devil, and other shit like that are just made up to keep people in line by the government. And what the fuck are you talking about he lures people there?
What I understand is Ben can't leave the graveyard, so he finds a way to trick people into coming there.
A troubled expression came over him as he sat forward in his chair.
Like that news article about the bronze vases that popped up on your phone. He's trying to lure us there because he knows what we've been doing.
That's a bunch of nonsense, and I'm surprised you believe in that silly shit.
Haven't you ever heard the stories about the gravedigger?
No, man. I don't pay any attention to fairy tales. That's for kids. And we're gonna get those fucking vases, so stop being a puto.
Dude, I'm not stepping foot in that graveyard.
Gabriel's eyes narrowed in anger as he glared at Bill. Fuck if you're not. Even if I have to drag your ass there, you're going. Bill feared Gabriel more than Ben Hamilton and the folklore that surrounded the cemetery. And in the back of his head, he figured the stories were just old wives' tales anyway.
If something happens to me, it's gonna be your fault.
Gabriel snickered. I can live with that. The graveyard. The following Friday, around midnight, the two thieves were parked on the side of the road in front of Cedar Creek Cemetery. The moon illuminated the night just enough for Bill to see the old wrought iron fence that ran along the front of the graveyard. Stone walls sat on each side of the main entrance, and on top of them sat a large wrought iron arch. Below the arch hung a sign that read Cedar Creek Cemetery. A feeling of anxiety came over Bill when he noticed the wrought iron gates were closed with a sign that read no access to cemetery between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Trespassers will be prosecuted.
This place is locked up tighter than a drum. Maybe we should turn around. That's why I brought the bolt cutters. I think this is a bad idea, man.
Gabriel pulled a revolver from his waistband.
Don't worry. If I see any monsters or goblins, I'll pop a cap in their ass. I never said anything about monsters and goblins. I was just trying to tell you what I heard about the old gravedigger.
If I see that fucker, I'll pop a cap in his ass too. His stomach knotted up, knowing if Gabriel killed the old man, he had been accomplice to murder.
You can't do that, dude. If we see him, we just need to run.
I ain't running from no one. Gabriel pointed to a wooded area across the road.
Go hide this pedazo de mierda behind those trees. It's not a piece of shit.
Bill despised Gabriel's demeaning and abusive personality, but being a follower, he always tucked his tail and took the mistreatment. After Bill parked his truck behind some brush, Gabriel handed him a small .22 caliber Derringer.
Keep that in your pocket.
He accidentally pointed the gun at Gabriel as he examined it.
Why did you give me this? I don't need...
Gabriel shoved Bill's hand to the side, pointing the barrel away from himself.
Watch where you're pointing it, pendejo. It's loaded. Oh, sorry, man.
There's no safety, and you have to keep it half-cocked in case it's dropped. If you need to fire it, just pull the hammer back the rest of the way, then pull the trigger.
Okay. And why do I need this?
In case shit goes south.
And what's the deal with the hammer and dropping it?
The firing pin rests on the bullet, so if it's dropped and the hammer isn't half-cocked, the gun could go off.
Is it broken?
No, it's designed that way.
What a piece of shit.
Just put the damn thing in your pocket and don't play around with it. And if you have to use it, make sure you aim for the throat.
What the hell are you talking about, aim for the throat?
If you have to use that on someone, try to shoot them in the throat since it's just a .22.
Who in the hell am I going to be shooting at in a cemetery?
Just keep it in your pocket. If you need it, you got it. Gabriel checked his flashlight to make sure it worked. Are the batteries in your flashlight good? Bill flipped his light on and off.
Yep.
Gabriel grabbed 4 duffel bags from behind the seat, then tossed 2 of them to Bill. Let's get this shit done. When they approached the double gates, Gabriel noticed the chain and padlock were laying on the ground.
You lying motherfucker. You said this shit was locked up tighter than a drum. It's fucking dark. It looked like it was locked from the truck.
Gabriel tossed his bolt cutters into one of the bags.
You're such a mierda de pollo. I don't even know why I keep you around. I'm not fucking chicken shit, and I don't know why I keep putting up with your crap.
Don't start whining. When they slipped through the gates, an eerie feeling came over Bill. On the outside of the walls, the moonlight illuminated the night, but the inside held a mysterious darkness. The temperature felt cooler, and the smell of death lingered in the air.
This doesn't feel right. We need to get the fuck out of here.
Stop being a pussy, and let's get this shit done. Bill was at his limit with Gabriel's mouthiness.
Man, you don't have to be such a...
Such a what?
Nothing.
If you got something to say, say it.
You don't have to be so rude.
Don't get your panties in a wad. I'm trying to make a man out of you.
That's the kind of shit I'm talking about.
Let's just worry about getting this job done. You can mope and whine later after we get paid. As they moved further into the centuries-old graveyard, apprehension engulfed Bill as he observed old gravestones, crypts, and statues of all ages, sizes, rising from a thick cloud of fog that drifted close to the earth.
Damn, dude. This place is spooky as fuck.
Yeah, if you're fucking 12. Gabriel searched the area with his flashlight.
Do you see any of the vases? No, man. I don't see shit. A strange feeling swept over Bill as he thought about it. Oh, shit. Maybe that news article really was a trick to get us here. Don't start with that fairy tale shit again. They're in here somewhere. We just need to find them. As the men traveled deeper into the graveyard, large oak trees began to shroud most of the moonlight, creating an uncanny darkness that seemed to absorb the light from their flashlights. Suddenly, a sense of doom came over Bill, stopping him in his tracks. Frightened, he quickly searched the area around them. When his light struck an old column-topped tombstone, a chill ran down his spine. The grave felt oddly familiar, but this was his first time stepping foot in the cemetery. When he glimpsed the name on the tombstone, his heart seemed to stop. Gabriel shined his light at Bill as he stood dumbfounded. What are you doing? Stop fucking around and keep moving. When Bill didn't respond, he trudged over to him. What's wrong with you? Bill's hand shook with fear as he pointed to the tombstone. I told you this was a mistake coming here. Now we're both doomed. What the hell are you talking about? That's my grave. What? Gabriel shined his light on the old tombstone, observing the name William Clyde Vickers. He's got the same last name, so what? William Clyde Vickers is my full name. I'm sure there's a bunch of fuckers with that same name. He gazed at Gabriel with a look of apprehension. June 22nd, 1963. What? That's my birth date. And it's the same date on the tombstone. Bullshit. You're just saying that to fuck with me. I'm serious, dude. I'll show you my license. And look at the date of death. Gabriel scrutinized the tombstone for a moment, observing today's date was inscribed as the date of death. Well, I guess you're fucked then. It's not funny. We need to get the hell out of here before it's too late. Dude, chill the fuck out. It's just a coincidence. He illuminated the tombstone, noting its age. The tombstone is like 100 years old. Some jackass must have made a mistake and wrote 1963 instead of 1863. No, man. There's some evil shit going on, and I'm getting the fuck out of here. We ain't leaving without those vases, and I'm not telling you again. He motioned with his flashlight. Get your ass moving. Bill wanted to flee the cemetery, but his fear of Gabriel kept him trekking forward. About 300 feet further into the graveyard, they came upon an area with hundreds of shiny bronze flower vases that rose from the fog. Gabriel gazed with wide eyes as he grinned wickedly. Damn, muchacho, we hit the premio maximo. Bill forgot about his fears as he ogled the loot while visualizing all the crack rocks, weed, and booze he could buy. Hell yeah, boy! Billy Jack gonna get paid! When excited, Bill sometimes referred to himself as Billy Jack. Stop jawing and let's get these fuckers hauled out of here. It's gonna take several trips to get them all. Like greedy kids at an Easter egg hunt, Gabriel and Bill began shoving the vases into their bags as fast as they could. When they each filled 2 duffel bags, they began lugging them through the cemetery. Bill struggled with the weight of his bags as he plodded behind Gabriel. Dude, we should have brought a dolly or something. These are heavy as fuck. Just keep going, man. We're almost there. When they came to the entrance, Gabriel found the gate secured with a chain and padlock. Did you lock this when we came through the first time? Short-winded, Bill dropped his bags as he panted. No, man. A gut-wrenching feeling swept over him as he thought about it. Oh, shit. That means the old man is around here somewhere. Fuck him. Gabriel pulled the bolt cutters from his bag, then cut the chain in 2. What if he calls the cops?
I doubt he even knows we're here, but if the cops do show up, we'll just sneak out the backside of the cemetery.
What about my truck?
It's fucking hidden, so they won't find it. We'll just come back later and get it. When the men entered the wooded area across the street from the cemetery, Bill noticed his truck was missing.
Son of a bitch! Someone stole my fucking truck!
Gabriel scanned the area with his flashlight. Are you sure we're in the right spot? Bill illuminated the ground.
Fuck yeah! I can see my tire tracks in the grass.
A wave of frustration came over him.
I can't believe some sorry motherfucker stole my ride.
Don't tell me you left the fucking keys in it.
I'm not fucking stupid. They're in my pocket. And what the fuck am I gonna do now? I don't have insurance.
They did you a favor. It was a piece of shit anyway.
Dude, I don't have the money to buy another one. And how in the fuck are we gonna get home?
I'll call my cousin after we're done getting the rest of the vases.
Rest of the vases? We need to go look for my fucking truck.
I'm not worried about that shit right now.
What about the old man?
I'm not worried about him either. Gabriel dumped the vases from his bags, placing them next to a tree. Dump out your bags so we can make another run. As Bill emptied his bags, anger consumed him, knowing the amount he'd make from selling his share of the bronze wouldn't even be enough to buy another truck.
This shit ain't right, man. I'm getting fucked. I knew this was a bad idea from the start.
Stop whining. Feeling used, Bill sulked as he followed Gabriel back to the cemetery. Impending doom. An agglomeration of emotions consumed Bill as he trudged behind Gabriel through the knee-high fog. His anxiety and fear of the graveyard were now replaced with disappointment, resentment, and anger over his truck. As he moped along, he played with the derringer in his pocket. Gabriel could hear Bill grumbling to himself as his feet trampled leaves and twigs laying on the ground. Stop making so much damn racket! Bill groaned as he brooded in self-pity.
I'm not doing it on purpose.
Gabriel also detected a clicking sound coming from Bill. He paused, and when he shined his light on him, he noticed his hand was in his pocket. I know you're not fucking with that gun.
I'm not.
Suddenly, a loud pop echoed out. Then a cloud of smoke emerged from the side of his pants. In a panic, Bill jerked his hand from his pocket and quickly examined it with his flashlight. Then he moved the light to his crotch and left leg.
Oh, shit. I might have shot myself.
Relief came over him when he didn't locate any blood or a bullet hole.
Damn, dude. Your fucking gun went off in my pocket for no reason.
When Gabriel didn't respond, he moved his light to where he originally stood. To his horror, he found him lying on the ground. He rushed over to him and knelt.
Are you all right, dude?
I'm not sure, man. He rubbed his head. It feels like I was hit with a club or something. Nausea came over Bill when he spotted blood running out of a small hole in Gabriel's forehead. Worried Gabriel would become upset, he didn't want to tell him he shot him in the head.
No, man, you were just walking along, then you fell. Maybe you hit your head on the ground.
Gabriel rubbed his forehead, then scrutinized the blood on his fingers. Damn, I guess I tripped. He started to rise, but paused as his memory came back to him. Hold up. I remember now. You fucking shot me. Bill quickly stepped back.
It was an accident, man. I swear.
Accident my ass. I told you not to play around with the gun.
I know, man. I know. Please don't be mad.
Gabriel rubbed his forehead as he thought about being shot in the head. Most people would be panicking and dialing 911 or rushing to a hospital, but he exhibited little fear in life and even less empathy. Damn,
I've been shot before, but never in the fucking head. I'm really sorry, dude. I didn't do it on purpose. Yeah, you are sorry.
He stood to his feet.
And you owe me big time for this shit. Anything you want, man. Just name it.
I'm taking your share of the bronze for starters. Bill knew not to debate the issue, especially since he just shot his partner in the head.
That's fair.
Gabriel held out his hand.
Give me the fucking juguete. Give you what?
The fucking gun. Bill handed it to him.
How can you take a shot to the head like that and still be standing?
I'm too fucking mean to die.
I'm being serious.
It's a fucking 22. He felt his forehead. It's just a flesh wound, and I doubt it even went through my skull. That's why I told you to shoot for the throat.
Oh.
Gabriel nodded. We fucked around enough. Let's get moving. When they arrived at the location with the vases, confusion came over Gabriel as he examined the area with his flashlight. Are we in the right spot? Something doesn't seem right. I thought we already started on this area. Bill shined his light across several tombstones, noticing bronze vases stood at each of the graves.
That's weird as fuck. I've already taken ones from these graves.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I recognize the names on some of these tombstones.
In a panic, he began searching the area with his flashlight.
That means someone replaced them.
A feeling of horror swept over him.
Oh, shit. The gravedigger must have done it.
An angered expression came over Gabriel.
That means he's fucking with us. I'm out of here, dude.
Overcome with terror, Bill started to walk off, but a strange feeling came over him. He clutched his chest as he knelt on one knee.
Something's wrong. I'm feeling dizzy and my chest is hurting.
You're probably just having one of your damn panic attacks. Bill didn't respond as he fell onto his face. Gabriel grabbed Bill by the hair and jerked his head back, then observed his eyes were rolled back into their sockets. When he noticed he wasn't breathing, he let his head plop back to the ground, then stood up as he grumbled.
Damn! Motherfucker fell over dead.
He looked around, then grabbed Bill by one of his legs and began dragging him toward a group of bushes to conceal his body. Suddenly, Bill awoke and let out a loud gasp, then sat up with wide eyes.
What the fuck? Why am I on the ground?
Gabriel released his leg and chuckled.
I thought your ass had died. What do you mean?
You grabbed your chest and then fell to the ground. I gave you CPR, but you didn't respond. Bill wiped his mouth.
Seriously? You had to give me mouth to mouth?
Yeah, man. You do the same for me. Bill stood up and began brushing himself off.
Where in the hell were you dragging me to?
To the entrance so I could have an ambulance pick you up.
That was weird as fuck. I hope I didn't have a heart attack or something.
I'm sure you're fine. Just try not to get yourself so worked up so much. Gabriel retrieved the 2 duffel bags Bill dropped and tossed them to him. Let's get these vases packed up so we can get the fuck out of here.
Are you serious? You still want to take them after the shit that's happened to us?
I came here to get paid, and I'm not leaving without them.
Dude, you got shot in the head, and I think I had a heart attack. That's a bad sign. We need to heed the warning and get out of here before we're not so lucky.
Just fill up your damn bags. We'll be done in no time. As Gabriel began bagging up the vases, Bill caressed his chest.
Dude, I can't feel my heartbeat. I think there's something wrong with my heart.
Stop fucking around and get your bags loaded. We can take your ass to the ER when we're done. As Bill headed over to a tombstone to retrieve a vase, the ground slightly gave way, making a crumpling sound. Thinking he stepped on a grave, collapsing a rotted casket, he moved his light to his feet. His eyes opened wide with disbelief.
What the fuck?
He began raking at the ground with his foot. Gabriel stomped over to him.
Now what the fuck are you doing? It's my fucking truck. Someone buried it.
At the bottom of the fog and slightly buried under the dirt, Gabriel noticed there was a Confederate flag painted on a piece of sheet metal. Then he examined the earth around it.
The ground hasn't been disturbed, so it can't be your truck. Yes, it is. I recognize my paint job.
You just had a mental episode, and now your mind is just playing tricks on you.
No, it's not.
Bill fell to his knees and began hand-digging around the edges until he exposed some glass.
Here's the fucking windshield.
Bewildered, Gabriel stood dumbfounded as he eyed the top of the truck.
How was that possible? I told you this place is evil, dude. We should have never come here.
He glanced up from the ground.
Are you going to help me get it out?
Now sensing a supernatural presence loomed over him, Gabriel shook his head as he exhibited a troubled expression.
No, man. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I need your help, man.
There's no way we can dig that shit out with just our hands.
I'm not leaving my truck behind.
When Bill uncovered the top of his driver's side window, spiders came crawling out of his truck. Gabriel took several steps backwards.
Oh, hell no. I can't stand fucking spiders. Seriously, dude? You're scared of spiders?
I ain't scared of nothing.
Then help me get my truck out.
Your ass can stay here all night fucking with it, but I'm leaving. Bill rose to his feet.
I'm not staying here by myself. I guess I'll have to come back here in the morning with a shovel.
Inundated with apprehension, the two men remained quiet as they quickly trekked through the graveyard. When they made it to the entrance, Gabriel found the gates were secured with a large diameter chain.
Someone locked the gate again. Hurry up and cut that shit. I want to get the fuck out of here.
Gabriel tried to cut the chain with the bolt cutters, but the diameter of the links were too large to fit inside its jaws.
Damn it! This is a larger chain and I can't cut it.
As he searched for the padlock, uncertainty came over him.
What the fuck? What's wrong?
There's no lock on the chain.
Is it tied together with wire or something?
No, it's fucking continuous.
What do you mean?
The chain doesn't have any breaks in it. Bill shined his light on the chain.
Is it welded together?
I don't see any welds.
Well, how is that possible?
I don't know, man. Something strange is going on.
Now do you believe me that this place is evil?
I don't know what to think. Bill scanned the top of the gates with his flashlight, then examined the top of the wrought iron fence and stone walls.
The fence is too tall to climb. How in the fuck are we gonna get out of here?
There should be another gate somewhere, or a place where the fence is lower. As they walked along the inside perimeter, searching for a way to escape, Bill spotted a faint light coming from the middle of the graveyard.
Hold up, man. I see someone. Turn off your light.
Gabriel quickly shut off his flashlight, then squatted down as he observed two lights in the distance.
It looks like there's two people.
He noticed the lights seemed to be getting closer.
Shit! They're heading our direction.
He pulled his revolver from his waistband.
Hide so they don't see us.
As the men hunkered down in the fog behind the large tombstone, Bill detected the sound of an engine.
I think it's a vehicle.
Gabriel peeked around the corner of the tombstone.
It sure in the fuck is. Do you think it's the cops? The old man might have called them.
I don't think so. They would be using a spotlight to look for us, and it's too small to be a cop car. As the vehicle crept along a gravel road a short distance away, Bill began to hear the old song, "I'll Never Get Out of This World Alive" by Hank Williams.
Do you hear that creepy shit they're playing?
Yeah, must be some fucking rednecks.
You think there's more than one person?
How in the fuck would I know? But once they start heading away from us, we're gonna all ass the other way. Normally, Bill's heart would be pounding from his adrenaline rush, but he couldn't even detect a heartbeat.
Something's wrong, man. I still can't feel my heart. Will you put your ear on my chest and see if you can hear my heartbeat?
I'm not doing that shit, you maricon.
I'm not a faggot. I'm just worried there's something wrong with me.
Dude, you're fine. Just try to stay calm. As the vehicle passed by them just a few yards away, Bill noticed a white-colored 01 painted on an orange door.
Dude, it's my fucking truck.
Enraged, he forgot about his heart as he rose to his feet and shouted,
Hey, that's my...
Gabriel jerked him back to the ground. Shut the fuck up, pendejo, and stay down.
But they're taking my ride.
A feeling of an impending doom lingered over Gabriel. Let them have it. I just want to get the fuck out of here.
I can't believe they buried my truck, then dug it back up. That doesn't make any sense.
I'm not sure what the fuck is going on, but there's definitely some strange shit happening tonight. As the taillights disappeared into the darkness, Gabriel scrambled to his feet. Let's roll. As they trotted in the opposite direction, a sense of dread swept over Bill.
My heart should be beating fast since I'm running, but I can't even feel it.
Gabriel didn't detect his heartbeat either, creating an uncanny feeling. We can't worry about that right now. Let's just find a way out of here. Then I'll have my cousin take us to the hospital.
Are you feeling strange too?
Being a stubborn person, he didn't want to admit that something was wrong, or that he was frightened. I'm good, dude. Just taking you there so you can get checked out. A short distance later, Gabriel slowed to a walk. Do you hear that?
Yeah, it's faint, but it sounds like someone screaming.
Where's it coming from?
I'm not sure.
A couple of steps further, Bill stopped in his tracks.
Hold up. I think it's coming from underground.
Gabriel could feel the sound resonating on the bottom of his feet.
What the hell?
There must be an underground structure.
That's creepy as fuck. But why would they be screaming?
I don't know, man. He dropped to his knees, and when he stuck an ear to the ground, he could hear the screams of numerous people. Oh, shit. It's a bunch of people screaming. Then, to his horror, he heard his name being called out. He scrambled to his feet. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Bill noticed Gabriel's horrified facial expression.
What's wrong, dude? What did you hear?
They're calling my name.
What?
Whoever the fuck is down there is yelling out my name.
That's impossible.
Suddenly, the ground collapsed under Gabriel, and his lower body fell into a hole. As he desperately tried to pull himself out, he wailed, Oh shit! Sácame la mierda de aquí! As Bill wrenched on his arms, he observed smoke rising from the hole, and he could hear the roaring sound of thousands of tormented people screaming as if they were burning in hell.
What the fuck? Do you hear that shit?
A look of horror was etched across his face.
Es una puerta de entrada al infierno. Get me the fuck out of this agujero.
Bill wasn't fluent in Spanish, but he understood the words gateway and hell.
I told your ass we shouldn't have come here. I know, man. You were right.
A grimace of terror came over Gabriel.
Oh my God! Something's grabbing my legs! Please get me out!
To Bill's horror, as he pulled on Gabriel's arms, something kept jerking him back into the hole.
I'm trying, but something keeps pulling you back in. No, man! Please!
Suddenly, Gabriel's arms jerked loose from Bill's grip, and he could hear him screaming as he plunged into the darkness. As he stood petrified, gazing down into the hole, He watched Gabriel's flashlight tumble through the darkness, getting fainter as it descended deeper into a dark abyss. A smoky abyss filled with the sounds of people screaming in agony. When he turned to run, something struck him in the head. As his vision faded to darkness, the last thing he saw was an old man standing over him with a shovel. Retribution. Gabriel awoke with a splitting headache. When he sat up, he noticed an oil-burning lantern hanging in a nearby tree. The faint light illuminated several tombstones and a large pile of dirt next to a hole in the ground. Then he observed barbed wire secured his wrist behind his back. A few feet away sat Bill with a horrified expression.
What the fuck is going on, man? Why are we tied up?
Bill remained silent as he nodded. When Gabriel looked, he observed an old man sitting on a tombstone smoking a cigarette. The man appeared to be in his early 80s. He wore denim blue jeans, a beige long-sleeve shirt, and an old black cowboy hat. Long gray hair cascaded down to his shoulders. The skin on his face appeared leathery and wrinkled, and his dark, pensive eyes sat back in their sockets. Uncertainty swept over Gabriel.
Who are you?
I'm the grave digger.
Why am I tied up?
Because the hour of retribution is upon you.
I don't know what the fuck that means, cabron, but you better let me go before you get hurt.
The old man sauntered over to him with a scythe. The tool incorporated a long S-shaped handle made of wood, 2 offset handles, and a long curved steel blade. Your days of terrorizing folks are over. Gabriel scrutinized the tool.
Go easy, vato. You can have the vases. They're just outside the gate next to a tree.
I couldn't care less about the vases. They were just a way to get you and your buddy here. A grimace of terror came over Bill.
Are you Ben Hamilton?
You already know the answer to that. Bill peered at Gabriel.
I told you we were being lured here. Now you have condemned us to hell. This dude is just some old senile fucker who likes to play juegos.
You keep telling yourself that, asshole. Bill redirected his attention to Ben.
What are you going to do to us, sir?
He nodded toward Gabriel. His soul will suffer an eternity for being a rapist and murderer. As for you, you'll pay for your transgressions in a more suitable manner.
What does that mean? Are you going to call the cops or something?
No, we have a different type of justice around here. He scrutinized the scythe.
Are you going to kill us?
I can't kill what is already dead. A confused expression came over him.
But we're not dead.
Sure you are. You died of a heart attack about an hour ago, and you shot your partner in the brain pan.
That can't be possible. I'm sitting here talking to you.
Dead folks around here talk all the time.
Am I a ghost or something?
More like a something, as you put it.
What does that mean?
I have this unique ability where I can keep the soul trapped in the body after death. Gabriel chuckled sarcastically.
Estás jodido loco, hombre.
I'll show you something fucking crazy. Ben stuck the blade of the scythe behind Gabriel's neck and pulled. Get your ass up, dipshit. Gabriel could feel the blade cutting into the back of his neck.
Hold up, gilipollas. I can't move. My arms are tied up.
Yeah, but your legs ain't fucking broke.
When he detected the blade scraping on his spine, he quickly scrambled to his feet.
Go easy, dude. You're gonna cut off my fucking head.
Ben forced him to the edge of the hole, then removed the blade from his neck.
Stand there and shut the fuck up, pendejo.
He retrieved the lantern hanging from the tree and held it over the hole, illuminating a dark-stained coffin sitting at the bottom.
Why are you showing me this, man?
Ben moved the light to a tombstone next to the hole.
Does this ring a bell?
Gabriel recognized the name engraved on the headstone. Emma Sue Hawkins, the 25-year-old school teacher he raped and murdered.
No, man. I don't know this bitch.
Ben eyed Bill as he sat terrified.
Did you know your buddy here raped and murdered this young woman 3 years ago? Then left her body in the woods to rot like a piece of garbage.
I didn't know anything about that, sir. Please don't punish me because of what he did.
You're not. But you are gonna be punished for being a thief and a burden to society.
When Ben moved his hand across the grave, Gabriel noticed the coffin began to shudder as smoke escaped from around the edges of the lid.
Is this some kind of prank?
A moment later, the lid swung open, revealing Emma's decayed corpse lying in the coffin. Gabriel noticed she wore a black dress with long sleeves. Her gaunt face exhibited patches of rotted skin, and he could see her long fingernails as her hands crisscrossed on her chest. When he observed the stitched gash running across her neck where he had slit her throat, his face contorted into a mask of horror.
Why in the fuck are you showing me this?
It's your eternal damnation.
Suddenly, Emma's eyes popped open wide. Gabriel stumbled backwards as a wave of terror washed over him.
What the fuck?
She sat up, then slowly raised her head until she made eye contact with him. A petrifying sensation of dread completely overtook Gabriel's mind.
What the hell, man?
He gazed at Ben with a look of consternation.
Are you some kind of bruja?
Emma leapt from the casket and tackled Gabriel. As he lay on his back, she sat on his chest and began wildly punching him in the face with alternating fists. With his hands tied behind his back, he couldn't defend himself or fight back. To his horror, she ripped open the front of his shirt and began dragging her sharp nails from the top of his chest down to his lower abdomen, cutting 8 deep gashes into his flesh. As he wailed in agony, she jerked off his pants and boxers, then sat on his thighs facing him with her knees on each side of his hips. When Gabriel caught his composure, he raised his head and noticed her bare waist.
Get the fuck off of me!
She remained silent as she peered back at him with hollow eyes.
What the fuck are you doing, you crazy bitch?
When she didn't respond, he glared at Ben as he sat on a tombstone smoking a cigarette.
What the hell did you do, man? Is she some kind of demon or something?
Since you violated Ms. Hawkins and robbed her of her life, I've returned her to her body so she can avenge herself.
No way, man. This can't be happening. This must be some kind of trick.
Emma moved her hands close to Gabriel's crotch
Then Brazilian wandering spiders came crawling out of her shirt sleeves. Large and hairy, these spiders are aggressive and produce a potent neurotoxin. Their bite is extremely painful, and because their venom boosts nitric oxide, a chemical that increases blood pressure, the effects can cause a long and painful erection in men. Possessing arachnophobia, a wave of terror came over Gabriel as the spiders covered his genitals.
Oh my God! Please get them off me!
To his horror, the spiders sank their fangs into his penis, balls, and surrounding tissue, and began injecting him with their venom. Gabriel wailed at the top of his lungs as an unbearable pain radiated from his lower torso. Gabriel moaned in agony as the spiders crawled back into Emma's shirt, and as his penis began to swell from his body's reaction to the neurotoxin, she rose to her feet, then stood over his head. A wave of disgust came over him as he stared up at her maggot-covered crotch. Then, to his revulsion, she plopped down on his face and began grinding her maggot-infested pussy against his mouth. He thrashed around and screamed as she smashed the larva into a slimy residue all over his face. When his penis became fully erect, she slid down to his waist and shoved his dick inside her. Even though he produced an erection, it wasn't from lust, but from neurotoxin, and as she rode him, an excruciating pain throbbed from his genitals. Suffering more agony than he had ever experienced before, she leaned forward, and as she French-kissed him, maggots, worms, decayed leaves, dirt, and putrefied liquids filled his mouth. As she rode and kissed him, rotted skin and leaking body fluids covered his body. Gabriel finally broke loose from her mouth and wailed.
Please stop! I'm sorry for what I did to you! Please have mercy!
She sat up and growled in an eerie voice.
And now you will be violated for an eternity.
To his horror, she grabbed his erect penis, dragged him over to her grave by his manhood, then threw him into the hole. As he lay on his back in her coffin, she leapt on top of him. Then the lid slammed closed. Horror-stricken by the bizarre event, Bill could hear Gabriel screaming as Ben casually shoveled dirt back into the hole while a cigarette hung from his lips.
Oh my God. Please, don't do that to me. I'm begging you.
You have a different punishment. Since you're a thief and a burden to society, you'll serve your penance as a caretaker over this graveyard for an eternity. The next morning, Ben used an old tractor with a front end loader and placed a large bronze statue of a guardian angel in the center of the property. Having molten bronze poured onto his body, disintegrating his outer flesh, Bill couldn't fathom how he was still alive as he gazed through the eyes of the statue, suffering in complete agony. The thought of suffering for an eternity in a bronze tomb horrified him. And that was Damnation by author Wade H. Garrett. A good reminder that if you ain't for scraps in life, that's the best you're gonna get. Also, a good reminder to head on over to Amazon or Audible.com and pick up The Gravedigger, the novel this story is spun off from, also narrated by yours truly. That's 9.5 hours of unbridled horror, well worth the price of admission. And remember, when you buy a copy, you're helping out old Drew Blood tremendously. Have you bought it yet? Well, damn. Well, here's a little taste for all you tentative folks. Again, from Wade H. Garrett's brand new audiobook, The Gravedigger, I give you Chapter 16, The Mausoleum Party. Assuming Bobby and Skeeter were lying about the party at the cemetery, Slater drove to the park first. When he didn't locate Bobby, he headed to Skeeter's house, finding no one there as well. Next, he checked out several of Bobby and Skeeter's hangouts with the same result. From there, he decided to head to the cemetery. When he arrived, he found the gates wide open, so he drove into the property. After navigating some of the winding gravel roads, he finally saw a dimly lit light. In fact, it was the only light visible. The cemetery held an uncanny darkness, even to the point it seemed to absorb most of the light from his headlights. As he approached the source of the light, he found it coming from an old rock building, but there was only one vehicle parked outside, a 1985 Ford Ranger. Thinking Bobby lied, he texted, "I'm here, but there is no party, you fucking liar." Bobby responded, "Yes, there is. We're in the old Hamilton Mausoleum." "Doesn't look like a party to me. There's only one truck here." "That's Skeeter's. Everyone else is coming later." Relieved that Bobby and Skeeter were the only two at the party, eliminating witnesses, he checked the revolver to ensure it was loaded, then headed on foot toward the building. Once inside, he found the source of the light, an old oil-burning lantern sitting on a concrete crypt. Finding the structure empty, he started to leave until the faint sound of an organ caught his attention. The music led him to another crypt that was slid over, revealing a staircase that entered a lower level. Fueled by the thirst for retaliation, he grabbed a lantern and headed down the stairs with his revolver in hand. The walls and steps of the stairwell started out as cement. Then about 10 feet down, they changed to solid white rock that was hand-carved out of the natural earth, indicating the ground below the cemetery had a thick layer of black dirt before changing to a solid layer of limestone. As he descended deeper into the earth, the temperature became cooler with each step, and a stale odor filled the air. At the bottom, he found a large chamber with a high ceiling carved out of the same natural limestone with a network of passages that appeared to be part of a cave system. Numerous oil-burning, wall-mounted lanterns illuminated the inside, revealing the age of the chamber to be very old. A greenish and brown patina stained the limestone walls, floor, and ceiling, and spiderwebs clung to every surface. 10 large crypts sat on the floor in a row, and numerous recessed tombs with wooden coffins lined the rear wall. On the wall to his left, there were several smaller rooms. The front of the rooms incorporated steel bars with a door, resembling prison cells. On the wall to his right, someone wearing a plague doctor's mask sat at an antique pipe organ, filling the chamber with creepy macabre music, and the smell of death, an ancient death, engulfed the air. Bewilderment washed over Slater as he gazed into what appeared to be a catacomb from another time period, something he never expected to find. When his eyes traveled to the far side of the chamber, he saw Bobby and Skeeter crouching in the shadows. Still raging over his mother's desecration, he shouted over the creepy music as he marched into the chamber.
"I see you fuckers hiding in the dark!"
When he approached them with the lantern, a conglomeration of emotions swept over him, ranging from confusion to apprehension. Instead of Bobby and Skeeter crouching down, the lantern illuminated 2 midgets wearing matching old-fashioned clothing indicative to the 1800s. Black double-breasted tailcoat, white shirt, brown notched collar vest, black trousers, stovepipe boots, and a wool John Bull hat. Their clothing, filthy and stained with dirt, exhibited severe deterioration, frayed edges and covered in holes. The men's faces were drawn and gaunt, revealing their bone structure, and darkened skin encompassed their sunken hollow eyes, giving them the appearance of the undead. Stunned by their appearance, Slater didn't know how to respond at first as he hid his revolver behind his back. Then the notion of a costume party crossed his mind. Still taken back by the realism of their costumes and makeup, he politely asked, I'm looking for Bobby and Skeeter. Have you seen them? Standing motionless, they gazed back with empty expressions for a moment. Then one man slowly raised his arm and pointed. Slater looked in the direction he indicated. Where are they at? I don't see them. The other man pointed in the same direction. About 20 feet away, 2 wooden coffins were leaning upright against a wall. All I see are 2 caskets. The men lowered their arms. Slater mulled it over for a moment, then concluded Bobby and Slater must be hiding from him in the coffins. So, they're fucking hiding from me. Thanks for the intel, boys. He strolled over to the caskets, also known as toe pinchers or vampire coffins, since they incorporated 6 sides and were more narrow at the head and toes than at the shoulders. He knocked on the first one with the end of his revolver. I know you're in there, fucker, so come on out. No one responded. All right, you fucking prick. Then I'll drag your ass out of there myself. He tried to open the lid of the first coffin, but it didn't budge. Then he noticed a viewing window installed on the upper portion of the lid. When he shined the light from the lantern into the coffin, something lunged at the window, striking the glass while making a loud thump. Startled, Slater stumbled backwards. What the fuck? He exclaimed. Once he caught his composure, he eased back to the window and glimpsed into it. Horror overcame him when he saw Skeeter's face. His eyes were huge as saucers, conveying his fear. His mouth sewn closed with thick black thread, and an upside-down cross was burned into his forehead. With terror etched across his face, Skeeter groaned out unintelligible words through his stitched lips as he desperately tried to communicate. Taken aback, Slater stepped away as he tried to process what he observed. Being a costume party, he would expect spooky makeup, even to the degree of realism Skeeter's possessed, but his horrified expression seemed genuine. About that time, a voice emanated from the other coffin.
Slater, is that you?
Slater eased over to the coffin and peeked through the viewing window, finding Bobby. I knew you were hiding from me, you fucker. Anger swept over him, and as he fought at the lid trying to open it, he grumbled, Unlock the door, asshole! You're gonna pay for what you did to my mom. Bobby shoved his face close to the window and shouted,
I didn't do that to her. I swear. Please get me out of here.
Slater paused as he eyed Bobby. You fucking liar. You knew where she was buried.
Please get me the fuck out of this box.
Well, I'm not doing shit until you admit to what you did.
They made me lie to get you here. And they're the ones that did that to your mom.
Who are you talking about?
Those fucking midgets. They're not human.
What the fuck are you talking about? About that time, the cross in Bobby's forehead turned bright red, like molten metal, and as he wailed in agony, he ferociously thrust his body around inside the coffin. A moment later, Skeeter began violently flopping around inside his coffin. Consumed with terror, Slater stepped back as he realized something was dreadfully wrong. Focusing only on his quest for vengeance, he never considered Bobby and Skeeter were luring him into a trap. Now recognizing he made a grave mistake, and the desecration of his mother's body was to simply bait him to the cemetery, he ran for the exit. To his horror, he found the 2 midgets blocking the bottom of the staircase, so he sprinted to one of the cave passageways. A short way down, he came upon numerous caskets stacked off to the side of the corridor. The caskets were of every type imaginable, from wood to steel, extremely old to almost new, ornamental to plain, from toe pinchers to modern style. Some were extremely decayed, rusted, and corroded, while others were shiny and pristine. Most of the lids were open, revealing its cadaver. The bodies were in all different stages of decomposition, from looking just a few days old to a rotted pile of flesh, and in some cases only a skeletal frame remained. Each of the corpses had an upside-down cross burned into its forehead, identical to the ones Bobby and Skeeter possessed, and their eyes were missing, leaving deep, shadowy cavities. As Slater ran past a group of caskets, he came upon a large number of nude corpses and body parts stacked along the floor against the walls. Their skin looked preserved, like wax figures. As he moved along, he observed complete bodies, torsos without limbs or heads, severed arms and legs, and decapitated heads grouped in individual piles. Some of the corpses showed signs of mutilation and torture, while others had grotesque body modifications, including its eyes and mouths stitched closed. Several corpses were hanging upside down on large wooden crosses that leaned against the wall, and numerous steel cages and medieval-style torture contraptions lined the floor with its entrapped victims. There were corpses that incorporated different skin-colored extremities harvested from multiple races, and they were attached with thick black thread or rusted wire. There were even corpses sewn to one another, and at their stitches the skin ravaged and torn, indicating they were alive when joined together. Same as the cadavers in the caskets, each of the corpses incorporated an upside-down cross on its forehead, and their eyes were missing. Further into the passageway, Slater began to see corpses fully dressed and propped into standing, sitting, squatting, fighting, and other anatomically correct positions, and each one possessed a cross on their forehead and empty eye sockets. Some of the corpses were dressed in Western clothes indicative of the 1800s, and a handful of them even wore cowboy hats, boots, and ammunition belts equipped with a holster and a revolver. There were Native Americans dressed in traditional clothing ranging from a breechcloth to complete buckskin clothing, deerskin leggings to full ceremonial attire including a war bonnet. The Indians were from different time periods and tribes, and some held various items from bows, spears, tomahawks, and rifles, and some donned tattoos, war paint, and headdresses. Next, Slater saw a large group of corpses wearing old prison uniforms with the name of the prison and inmate numbers still printed on the fabric. Once he passed the prisoners, he came upon hundreds of corpses in all sorts of apparel from all time periods, and they too possessed upside-down crosses and empty eye sockets. It was like a wax museum of horror. As he traveled further, he came upon complete skeletons, then piles of bones and skulls sorted in individual piles. Next, he saw two-wheeled carts lined up along the wall, similar to the hay carriages from the 1800s. Their entire construction, including the wheels, were made of wood. Mutilated bodies and body parts were piled on the carts, perhaps waiting to be sorted. As Slater passed each morbid group, random thoughts raced through his mind, such as, "Oh my God, it's only getting worse. What the fuck have I stumbled into? Oh, fuck, this is bad. What kind of psycho did this? Am I in hell?" Finally, Slater came to the end of the passageway, finding a large room filled with everyday furniture and fully dressed corpses that appeared to be preserved. But this group didn't possess the upside-down crosses. Their eyes were intact, nor did the environment emit an unpleasant atmosphere like in the passageway. Soft, soothing music resonated out as the warm glow of the wall-mounted lanterns gave the room a nice ambience. The dead bodies were positioned in normal activities, such as sitting on a couch watching TV, at a computer desk typing on a keyboard, doing pottery, crocheting, knitting, smoking cigars, playing board games, sitting around the kitchen table partaking in a feast, sleeping in bed, playing video games, dancing, playing tennis, golf, and other sports. And several corpses donned football gear and were positioned in a formation.
There were even corpses dressed as rock stars holding guitars and other instruments. Everyone seemed happy and participating in what they enjoyed in life the most. In the center of the room, movement caught Slater's eye. Ben and another man, donning a U.S. Marine's dress blue uniform, were sitting at a card table playing chess. Slater froze in his tracks as he exclaimed,
"Oh, shit!"
Ben glanced over.
"I'm glad to see you made it."
Stunned and not sure if he should bolt, he stood steadfast as he eyed Ben cautiously.
"Sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you and your friend."
Ben moved the chess piece.
"You're not."
Slater eyed the other man and started to speak until he noticed he was a corpse. A gut-wrenching feeling swept over him, realizing Ben was responsible for all the atrocities that surrounded him.
"In fact, I've been waiting for you."
Horrified, Slater could barely speak.
"Who are you?" "I'm the grave digger."
All the horror stories he heard about Ben flashed through his mind.
"Are you real?" "No, you're talking to a ghost, dumbass."
Ignoring Ben's sarcastic reply and pondering on the horrific sight he passed in the passageway, he muttered,
"Are you going to kill me?" "What do you think I should do with you?"
Slater wanted to run, but his legs were frozen with fear.
"What do you mean?" "Don't play dumb with me, boy. You know why you're here." "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Suddenly, the sound of feet shuffling behind him prompted Slater to look over his shoulder.
"Is someone else here?" "There's a lot of folks hanging around, but they're not of your concern."
Out of the corner of his eye, Slater thought he saw the Marine move a chess piece. He quickly jerked his head back toward the card table and examined the corpse, noting his skeletal frame, rotted flesh, and glazed-over eyes.
"Did that army dude just move his arm?" "Mr. Arnold is a decorated Marine. Show some respect." "Oh, I didn't mean to be disrespectful. My mind is just playing tricks on me. Sorry." "What are you talking about?" "I thought I saw him move his arm." "You saw correctly." "There's no way. He's dead." "How is he gonna play chess if he don't move his own pieces?"
Slater stood dumbfounded for a moment.
"You're just screwing with me." "If you say so."
Slater still didn't comprehend the magnitude of his situation, even after witnessing all the bizarre and horrifying things, such as his mother's corpse moving on its own while speaking to him, Bobby's cross that appeared on his forehead right in front of him, the two midgets in the main chamber, the ghastly exhibit in the passageway, and now the room filled with preserved bodies. His mind couldn't fathom this was the work of something supernatural. For him, there must be a simple explanation for it all. He even contemplated Bobby and Skeeter were playing a prank on him.
"Are you some kind of magician?" "Someone gave me a magic starter kit years ago, but never really got into it." "Well, this is a pretty elaborate show you're putting on, so I wouldn't say you never got into it. And what's the deal with all the fake corpses out in the hallway? Are you turning this into a haunted house or something?"
Ben moved his queen.
"I think of it more as a sanctuary."
"What is that?"
"Well, all these folks in here wanted my help. Now they're at peace."
"Folks?
You talking about these props?
I wouldn't refer to them as props. They might take offense to that.
Thinking the old man was part of a prank, Slater played along. What did you help them with?
Retribution.
Is that why you brought me here? You're gonna revenge me?
You're on the other end of the spectrum, and will be joining the ones in the passageway.
What the fuck does that mean?
You find out in due time.
Thinking Ben was trying to scare him, Slater grinned. You sure went all out on this prank.
If you say so.
Suddenly, the Marine moved the chess piece as a ghostly voice echoed out.
Checkmate.
Ben leaned back in his chair as he pumped his fists.
Damn it. That's like 20 in a row.
Slater snickered. That's some good animation. You almost had me fooled with this hoax. Ben took a deep breath, then glared at Slater.
Playtime is over. And what gave you the idea this is a ruse?
I'm not an idiot. It's obvious Bobby and Skeeter put you up to this. Slater eyed the Marine. And look, you can tell the Army dude is fake as shit. You didn't even do a good job making him.
I told you to show some damn respect, boy.
Now behaving in a cocky manner, Slater approached the Marine after setting the lantern on the card table. I'm not falling for your trickery. When he clutched the corpse's head, it snapped off at its neck. Ben's eyes narrowed.
You dumbass. Look what you did to Mr. Arnold.
Slater's arrogant facial expression morphed into confusion when he realized the head appeared to be authentic. Oh, shit. Ben rose from his chair.
Oh, shit is right, boy. And you are gonna pay for that.
Suddenly, the head opened its mouth and wailed out an ear-piercing scream. Horrified, Slater threw the head at Ben, grabbed the lantern, then sprinted out of the room. Now realizing it wasn't a hoax, but a supernatural realm he never knew existed, a petrifying sensation of terror completely overtook him as he raced down the passageway. As he passed the corpses, body parts, skeletons, and caskets, the gravity of his situation sank in. Knowing if he got caught, his fate would be doomed. When he approached the two coffins containing Bobby and Skeeter, the hair on his neck rose as ear-piercing screams roared out, a sound you'd only expect to hear emanating from hell itself. Eyeing the exit, he saw the two midgets still standing guard at the bottom of the staircase. Without missing a step, he threw the lantern at the two men, engulfing them in flames. The distraction worked as he sprinted past them and headed up the stairs.
Chilling tales for dark nights.